Okay. Should we do the Pledge of Allegiance first and then introduce them? Okay. The town meeting members will please take their seats. The town meeting will please come to order. Hey, good thanks. How are you, Chris? We're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance and then introduce them. Okay, we're ready to get going here. The meeting will come to order. We have a full agenda this evening, and we have hopes of getting out of here by the end of the month. So we have a quorum. We will begin our meeting, as we always do, with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I am now pleased to introduce to you, under the direction of our choir director at the high school, Joel Buford, the Winchester High School Choir, which early on Thursday morning The choir is one of 3 choirs nationally that's been selected through the National Youth Choir Festival to perform this Saturday evening at Carnegie Hall. They leave early Thursday morning at the crack of dawn, and they will be in Carnegie Hall, having followed the dictum of practice, 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 and the great direction of Mr. Buford. Without further ado, and as they file on stage, the choir has agreed to, before their practice this evening, come and sing to us. Can we turn this microphone off, please? There won't be any further argument on the education budget. To thank the choir, Mr. Buford. It was tremendous, and wish them good luck on Thursday night. A few more, before we begin, we have new town meeting members present, and we need to swear them in. To swear them in, we need the oath on the screen. So if you have recently been elected or re-elected to the town meeting, if you could please rise and repeat after me. I do solemnly affirm that I will faithfully and impartially discharge and perform all the duties of the office to which I have been elected in accordance with the laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and the Charter and bylaws of the town of Winchester. Thank you very much. I'd like to congratulate the newly elected members of the town boards, Mr. Golubov, Ms. Welch, Ms. Von Maren, and Ms. Bergstrom at the school committee, and also like to express our appreciation to those who ran for those seats as well, Mr. Powers, Ms. Wren, and Mr. Schindelman. And thank all of you for running for the town meeting. We had a number of competitive seats this year, including a tie in the ever-competitive Precinct 3. So I think it was very encouraging for democracy with a small d in Winchester, and we appreciate everybody coming out for that. There are a few people that we would like to recognize at the outset. First, the chairperson of the EFPBC and our newly recognized Citizen of the Year, Bob Deering. Congratulations, Bob. When you see Jay Gill's name come across the screen on the Chiron on ESPN, it's usually followed by the initials DPW. From now on, it will also be followed by the initials HOF, as Jay will be the newest inductee this Thursday into the Winchester Athletic Hall of Fame. Congratulations, Jay. I'm not going to repeat the suggestion that they had to wait for Coach Marshall to die to swear you in, but you know. With respect to the newly elected members of the board, I would like to call your attention to the service of a number of people who are stepping down from board service this year. Charles Sekaris first served on the planning board in 1977 as a combative and cranky young guy who didn't think it would be a good idea to pave over this town of Winchester Center and make it into a pedestrian walkway. He had some other ideas, and he expressed them forcefully. He continued to express his ideas forcefully right up until the very last planning board meeting. And during that time, Charles, as many of you know, as an architect, led his partners in his practice, both nationally and internationally. And I imagine over the last 35 years that there were many trips, many things that called his attention. But despite that, for the last 35 years, he has been a faithful member of this town meeting, a contributing member to the planning board, and somebody who's made our town a better place to live. And for that, we are very grateful. Similarly, Steve Powers, who steps down from the Board of Selectmen after serving his second term, has been a member of the town meeting for 32 years. He commenced his town service, as all great town meeting members do, on the school committee in 1984. And from 1984 onward, he has played a very material role in the town and town politics. Never shy to express his opinion, has forgotten more about electoral politics in the town of Winchester than many of us will ever know, and has always had one thing in mind, and that was the best interest of the people of Winchester and the people he has served. He has done so faithfully with all his efforts and has been a great advocate for the causes he believes in and mostly for the citizens and the children of Winchester. And we are very appreciative of Steve's service. Finally, we, unfortunately, and without his presence, end tonight a period of 49 years of town service. One of the constancies in the town of Winchester has been the presence of a member of the Parkhurst family in this town meeting and in service to the town of Winchester. Steve Parkhurst began his service in 1968 on the Finance Committee. Where he served from 1968 to 1970. He went on to the school committee, where he served from 1970 to 1976. In addition to his service on the finance committee and the school committee, he served on the capital planning committee, the committee on names, the committee on rules, the conservation commission, the housing partnership board, the 150th celebration committee, the ad hoc advisory committee, the fair housing committee, the Mary Clef Academy Acquisition Study Committee, the North Suburban Planning Council, the Open Space and Recreation Committee, the Town Forest Committee, the Winning Farm Use Committee, and for the last 49 years as well, a member of this town meeting. Steve and Cecily are moving on to Brooksby Village in Peabody, where we will wish them well. But Steve has been a heroic member of the town meeting and someone who has given untold hours of service to the town. He has been a great mentor and an even better model for many of us who look to serve the town and do so in a way that best displays the characters and traits of the town and its residents. So I know that Steve is watching tonight, and I'd just like to express my appreciation and the appreciation of each of us for what he has given to the town. So tonight we start the town meeting as is required by the bylaws. We cannot consider any financial articles that relate to the upcoming fiscal year until the first Monday in May. So tonight we'll move through mostly non-financial articles, which are Articles 1 through 13, with the exception of 12. I am informed that Article 3 will be postponed to a time certain, that being the last order of business on Monday, May 8th. And that Article 4 will be indefinitely postponed. The articles are such that we should be able to move through them with some swiftness after the preliminary reports of the town meeting members. We will then reconvene on Monday, May 1st, to start our consideration of the budget. The budget materials are presented to you this evening on the table outside by the Finance Committee. And we will undertake and try to work our way through the yellow sheet and the bulk of Article 14 and the attendant other financial articles on Monday, May 1st. We will then take a break on Thursday of that week for the Sports Hall of Fame banquet, and we will return to this auditorium on Monday, May 8th, where we will commence our deliberations on that evening with the special town meeting and the consideration of the article to fund the field at Skilling's Field, and we will then, after that, move on to the remainder of the business before the meeting, and we will adjourn at the end of Monday, May 8th. So 3 Mondays, a lot of work in front of us, but no reason why we can't accomplish it with some attention to the debate and the rules before us. So that being the case, that brings us to the preliminary motions this evening. The preliminary motions are set forth in the purple materials, the article motion booklet in front of you. I will call your attention to, in contrast to the last 30 years or so, this evening we have new town council with us, Art Krieger and Jessica Wall from the firm of Anderson & Krieger, who have already provided great service to the town, and we look forward to working with them tonight. So when you have questions to town council tonight, Mr. Krieger will be the one to answer those. So Art, thank you for your presence here tonight. So the preliminary motions, it is moved and seconded that the following preliminary motions be voted as one, that Richard Howard, Town Manager, Stacy Ward, Town Controller, Arthur Krieger, Mina Manukas, or Jessica Wall, Town Council, and Mark Toogood, Assistant Town Manager, who are not town meeting members, be permitted to sit at the front of the auditorium with the Board of Selectmen during all sessions of this town meeting, that all members of the Finance Committee and their secretary, whether town meeting members or not, be permitted to sit together at the front of the auditorium during all sessions of this town meeting, that the town clerk or her designee or the assistant town clerk be permitted to occupy a desk on the platform during all sessions of this town meeting, that the moderator be authorized to permit members of various town boards, commissions, committees, department heads, and petitioners of special articles to sit at the front of the auditorium during consideration of appropriate articles. That unless it be otherwise ordered, all adjourned sessions of this town meeting shall be held on successive Thursday, Monday evenings at 7:30 p.m. in the Winchester High School auditorium until the work of this town meeting is completed. The cable television coverage shall be permitted at all sessions of this town meeting. The motions having been made and seconded, all those in favor? Any opposed? The motion's pass. Thank you. This brings us to Article 1, which is the report of the town boards and committees. I have asked the leaders of the town boards and committees, with one exception, to keep their comments to 5 minutes this evening. And starting this evening, the chairperson of the Board of Selectmen, Jim Whitehead. Mr. Whitehead.
Mr. Moderator, ladies and gentlemen, as we approach the end of fiscal year 2017, as we approach the end of fiscal 2017, I am pleased to report that thanks to the diligent efforts of our town manager, Richard Howard, our superintendent of schools, Judith Evans, their department heads, and their many unsung employees, our community is in excellent fiscal health and continues to hold its AAA bond rating. Richard will be providing more detail in his report and will further detail the proposed fiscal year 2018 budget that maintains town services at their current levels for another year. While this is good news, there are some trends that would challenge us in the future. The school budget has increased by 4% for the second year in a row. This is the result of increased enrollment and an increasingly diverse student body. However, similar increases are not sustainable in the future without the need for additional revenue from an operating budget override or cuts to services. School costs are rising because Winchester continues to be ranked as one of the best places to live due to our proximity to Boston, our excellent schools, and our strong sense of community. This helps maintain our property values, but it also attracts developers who see Winchester as an excellent place to make money by demolishing livable homes and creating McMansions. These larger homes attract larger families, driving up school costs without a commensurate increase in revenue. We are also the target of developers seeking to build large 40B developments because our inventory of affordable housing, currently around 2% of total housing units, is well below the state mandate of 10%. These large 40B developments threaten to place a huge burden on our infrastructure, our schools, and our services. The proposed Forest Ridge 40B project is on hold, but new proposals are underway. Fortunately, the developer of the latest proposal for a 350-unit development off Holton Street has indicated a willingness to work with the town and the neighborhood to ease some of those impacts. Winchester home prices are growing beyond what young, less affluent families and town employees can afford. We clearly need to grow our stock of affordable homes, but we also need to do so in a planned manner. A priority for the Board of Selectmen this coming year is the preparation of a housing production plan that will lay out a longer-term roadmap for achieving the state goal of 10%. Once approved by Mass Housing, demonstrated progress in implementing the plan will give us the ability to limit affordable housing development to those consistent with our plan. And a final note about the budget. Our town is currently negotiating all of our labor agreements. We anticipate that the new agreements will be affordable and within budget based upon negotiations to date, but stay tuned. There are many construction and flood control projects currently underway. The high school and Skillings Field projects are entering their final phases and should be substantially complete by fall. New traffic signals along Cambridge Street and at the intersection of Bacon and Church are in operation. And it's pretty obvious we're installing a new culvert under the Mount Vernon Street Bridge. And we are also developing engineering drawings for a new culvert under the Swanton Street Bridge and are working with our state representative and senators to secure funding for the construction of that project. Completion of these projects will leave us with one major project in the flood control program remaining, that being the enlargement of the culvert under the railroad tracks behind the Morocco School to mitigate the flooding in the Davidson Park area. Next Monday, we'll seek your approval to install temporary traffic lights at the intersection of Johnson and Ridge. Johnson and Ridge is one of the most accident-prone intersections in the town. The town has qualified for about $1.7 million for redesign of the intersection and installation of permanent traffic signals, but it will be several years before construction starts. The temporary lights will improve safety at that intersection until the larger project is completed. We're also working to improve traffic safety across town. Thanks to the excellent work by the engineering department and the DPW, Winchester was awarded $400,000 under the Commonwealth's Complete Streets program. That money has funded crosswalks, traffic calming measures, and other traffic safety projects. We're also eligible for another $400,000 in the coming round of funding, but must have shovel-ready projects to fund. You will be asked to approve monies for Complete Streets engineering and design work at our next meeting. Kudos are also due the Energy Management Committee for their work in obtaining grants for energy-saving projects that have saved the town millions of dollars in energy costs to date. This year, the town has applied for a grant of $250,000 for energy-saving projects at the Lincoln and Parkhurst schools and at the Public Safety Building. If funded, these projects will save the town around $100,000 a year. Funding will also fund a electric vehicle charging station at the high school. We're making progress removing lead from the water system and have secured an interest-free loan and grant from MWRA to accelerate this program. Letters have been sent out to all 243 homeowners that were known to have or were suspected of having lead service lines into their homes, encouraging them to take advantage of a $1,500 grant towards the cost of removing and replacing them. Responses were received from 73 homeowners, and their homes were inspected. The good news is that 49 homes suspected of having lead turned out not to have it at all. However, 24 homes were identified as having lead or galvanized service lines, and of those homeowners, 15 have signed with the town to accept the $1,500 grant, and we expect to replace their service lines this year. We're also making progress removing lead connectors or goosenecks from our water lines. The Water Department removed 52 goosenecks in 2016, and they plan to remove an additional 50 goosenecks this year, or more if any money remains after addressing the lead service and lines. We expect to have addressed all goosenecks over the next 2 to 3 years. Recently approved rezoning of the Central Business District is beginning to bear fruit with several mixed-use housing and retail projects in the planning stages for the Central Business District. The board continues to work on a request for proposals for the development of the town parking lot to the west of the train station. We're working with a consultant to identify options for replacing the parking that would be displaced, and we continue to work with the MBTA's train station architect on plans for the reconstruction of the station to ensure that design of the ramps and elevators integrate with any potential development. Let me also update you on the two Eversource transmission line projects. The Energy Facility Siting Board has approved the 115 kV line from Everett to Horn Pond substation in Woburn. We expect that work will begin later this year, and that work will impact traffic on Main, Bacon, Fletcher, Wildwood, Woodside, and Pond Streets as construction progresses. The town is negotiating a host community agreement with Eversource, and we are requesting a number of mitigation measures, including work to improve public access to big and little winter ponds. The EFSB hearings on the 345 kV line have been completed. We believe that we made a strong case for the EFSB to use the Green Street route through Woburn instead of the Cross and Washington Street through Winchester. The Green Street route we demonstrated as less expensive with fewer impacts to Winchester and Woburn neighborhoods. We expect the EFSB's decision sometime in the May-June timeframe. Let me assure you that if EFSB decides to route the line through Winchester, we will appeal to the Superior Court. The recent town election added a new member to the board, and I want to congratulate Mariano. And we look forward to working with him. Mariano's victory means that Steve Powers is no longer on the board, but I do want to recognize him and thank him for his many years of service on the board and in other town roles. In closing, the town is facing and will continue to face pressures on its budgets, but the town is in good shape and well managed. It continues to be an open and welcoming community that benefits greatly from the time and effort volunteered by its many town and civic groups, and we thank them all for their efforts. Mr. Moderator, that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Whitehead. We'll next hear from the school committee and its chairperson, Susan Verdicchio. Ms. Verdicchio. Jim was only 4 minutes over, so it's an achievable standard for you.
And no slides, wise man. Let's see. Which is forward? So good evening. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good evening, members of the Finance Committee, Town Manager Howard, the Board of Selectmen, my fellow town meeting members. I'm Susan Verdicchio, Chair of the School Committee, and this report is to give you just a snapshot of the many good things going on at the Winchester Public Schools as we finish up the last 2 months of the school year, plan for next year, and the years beyond. The mission of the Winchester Public Schools is to provide all students with an outstanding education in a nurturing yet challenging environment that fosters academic achievement, healthy social and emotional development, enthusiasm for education, and a lifelong love for learning. First, as you may have observed coming in the building, the third and final phase of the Winchester High School renovation is coming along. It's on schedule and on budget for our target occupancy date in September. A lot of work is still to be done over the summer, removing the portable classrooms on the site and installing all the landscaping. And we're also very happy and pleased that after a collaborative effort among the Educational Facilities Planning and Building Committee, or EFPBC, the Board of Selectmen, Energy Management Committee, Town Manager, and DPW, we now have a highly qualified and experienced facilities manager on board named Chris Conway. I met him earlier this evening. He's on the job here in the high school as the last phase is finishing up, and that's when all of the highly efficient building systems are going to be tested and commissioned. So having him on board will help us be sure that our green building is properly maintained and operates at peak efficiency. We're still at work on updating our overall long-term facilities master plan. Chris Nixon will be along in a couple of minutes to give you more details, but I just wanted to say that after going back to take another look at enrollment projections because of the highly likely, high-density residential projects coming to town under the 40B law. We've now focused in on the existing need for space at McCall and planning for major renovation or replacement of both Morocco and Lynch schools. We're also reevaluating the best location for the central office administration, which is right now at Parkhurst, but Parkhurst is a 15-classroom school building and really not a good fit for a long-term home for the administrative offices. You'll hear more about our budget proposal in the next session. I just want to give you a little context. We do expect some enrollment growth next year, mainly at the secondary level, with between 85 and 90 additional students at the high school. Another budget driver is always meeting the needs of our special education students and trying to keep them in the district with their peers. And so to do that, we are going to continue with our specialized learning centers in the various elementary schools and also adapting our co-teaching model in all the grades. To put next year's enrollment in perspective, this shows a 10-year comparison. You can see at the bottom that the district's enrollment reached 4,000 in 2008 and has continued in a steady upward pace. This is another sort of high-level slide about our budget. It's its funding sources and uses. On the left, the largest source of funding is, again, no surprise, our town appropriation, followed by state aid. But I also want to highlight the area that's yellow. That is made up of a combination of user fees, which are fees that parents pay for transportation, for extracurricular sports, I think also instrumental music lessons, and donations from fundraising, from private sources, from Winchester Foundation for Educational Excellence, Murphy Foundation. Just wanted to highlight that private funding does support a substantial part of our operational needs every year. The other chart shows the uses, and you'll notice that the orange and blue areas, those are the largest uses, and that's salaries for our administrators and our teachers. And the brown area is employee benefits. So we spend the bulk of our money on our people. Instead of running through a list of all our goals for the year, I wanted to focus in on the one that has become the primary goal for us for now, and that is to be sure we're taking care of the nurturing environment, healthy social and emotional development, and lifelong love for learning elements in our mission. One of the things we're doing is looking at integrating emotional health and an understanding of intrinsic motivation, real motivation, not motivation like fear and competition, at all levels. And one of the main ways we're doing that now is through a variety of professional development experiences for educators and conversations in all the buildings. Through a number of committees that are meeting at the different grade levels, elementary, middle, and high school, the staff themselves are looking at changes that would support emotional and emotional wellness. One of the things we're looking at is maybe how to restructure the schedule during the school day, or also we're looking at potentially later starting time for the middle and high school, maybe different approaches in our homework practices, but all, dedicated to preventing stress, increasing student autonomy, protecting the mental health of educators and students, just basically ratcheting down the pressure. Expanding on that effort, this spring we've embarked on a strategic visioning process, which will be a series of aspirational community conversations around the question, how do we define success? Should we maybe redefine success? So you won't be hearing a list of the highly selective colleges that all our graduating seniors got into from me tonight, although I will give you one stat that I got from the guidance office. Our graduating class filed over 2,800 college applications, which works out to roughly 10 applications per student. Even if they only get into half of those, they can go to college 5 times? I don't know. They're in good shape. They'll be fine. So we're trying to shift the conversation away from that kind of evaluation, that kind of, where you go is not who you'll be. So we invite you to join us on this project. Instead of asking how many students got into MIT and Harvard, we'd like to ask you to entertain questions like, what kind of learner and community member do you hope each Winchester student will become? And what are the experiences and lessons that the schools teach or impart, academic and non-academic, that will help them reach those aspirations? So please join us as we craft a shared vision for the next 5 to 8 years in the Winchester schools. Your next opportunity will be a community visioning conversation coming up this Thursday at McCall. There are ways to participate online with a sort of an online survey. We're looking for your insights and your experiences and your vision while we try to move forward. So I hope you'll join us in this strategic visioning journey. There's information out on the table in the lobby. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now hear from Chris Nixon from the school committee, who will present the school committee master plan update. This is a matter of some import, detail, and complexity, and Mr. Nixon has requested, and I have afforded him 10 minutes to make this presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. 6 months of work, 10 minutes to talk about it. Here we go. A quick revisit for those who are new to town meeting. A master plan is a vision for the support, expansion, consolidation, or transformation of our district facilities that provides flexibility to accommodate changes in enrollment, educational goals, and programming. A master plan does many things. It aligns with the district's educational programming and planning, and plans for growth and the best use of our facilities and properties with preliminary cost, phasing, and schedule options. But a master plan does not, and I underscore this tonight, include the detailed design of new buildings or additions, nor the specific financial plan for implementation. So what's the value of a current master plan? It's good practice for institutions to update their master plans every decade. A plan more than 10 years old loses its relevance to today's institutional needs and program. Development of the last master plan began a decade ago, and since its approval, many of the recommendations have either been completed or are underway. While smaller scale projects at Morocco and Lynch have addressed some of those buildings' most pressing needs, recommendations for wholesale renovation and addition at these schools remain unfulfilled, and our continued enrollment growth has once again put great pressure on the instructional spaces here. So last year, we set forth an aggressive schedule, and although the school committee has not yet voted on a new master plan, we have made some key decisions involving McCall Middle School, Morocco, Lynch, Vincent Owen, as well as Central Office, the Parkhurst School, and even the Carriage House. I'm pleased to share these developments with you all tonight. We also welcome your attendance and feedback later next month when we present this work in more detail at another community meeting here at Winchester High School. Stay tuned on the date. Those of you present for fall town meeting or our subsequent community session will be familiar with the work that we faced at that time. After ruling out several major operational changes, including 6th grade academies and K-5 combination schools of nearly 1,100 students, the master plan working group was, by January, into the process of refining the details and costs of the remaining options. That is, until a key question resurfaced for the second time in a year. With our early concern in the fall over the potential for a large-scale 40B project off of Forest Circle in the Morocco district diminished by understandings that the project was facing significant hurdles In the regulatory and approval process, we collectively breathed a sigh of relief until word came in January of another potential large-scale 40B on the Morocco Lynch line off of Holton Street, a project which has recently garnered some press and which you may now be well aware of. The working group agreed to pause and reevaluate our enrollment projection methodology to ensure that we were proactively capturing the full potential of land development across our town, and with it, students. Looking beyond our 3- and 5-year census data or known permitted projects, what other data points could inform this important process? With the meaningful insight and help of the town manager, town planner, town engineer, and the chair and vice chair of our Board of Selectmen, our working group and Flansburgh architects identified a number of land development projects which we feel are likely to be completed in the 5- and 10-year term ahead. Each of these development opportunities had to pass a series of questions to be counted in the process. I've summarized these for you in the map above. A 40B project off of Holton Street I mentioned. We assume at least 300 units. We have the already permitted project off of Cambridge Street at 96 units. There is consensus that in the next 20 years, Winchester can see up to 200 units of development from the center north along Main Street. And for the purposes of our master plan, that's 50 units by year 5 and another 50 by year 10. The dots up and to the right represent the Forest Ridge parcel, which, although perhaps not to be developed as a 40B, surely will be developed as a subdivision or some residential use in the future. And the Kraft Foods plant, where they made Jell-O, is being shut down. I actually thought it was conservation land until this process informed me it's actually available for residential use. A developer can build 12 single-family homes as a matter of right along North Forest Street, 4 to 5 bedrooms each, and those kids, of course, hit the Morocco district. We go forward another 5 years. We see a small 40B project at the Waterfield site, continued growth from the center north along Main Street, a smaller project at Highland. And so what really does it mean? Well, since 2012 redistricting, we've seen an increase of nearly 200 K-12 students here in Winchester, 74 of them at the elementary level. A more substantial wave is coming. I don't expect you to be able to read the fine print, but we'll share it with you at our community meeting next month. The bottom line is, by year 5, we expect an additional 240 K-5 students in Winchester and 147 at McCall Middle School. By year 10, an additional nearly 60 students at the elementary level and nearly 30 at McCall. So, what's the bottom line? Apologize, my slide is messed up here. We've got a shortage of 4 classrooms today at the elementary level. So by year 5, we need an additional 12. That's 16 is our target for year 5. By year 10, 19 classrooms for elementary students. And what about McCall? Well, we're already hard at work on phase 1, thanks to your support in the fall, a 3-classroom project at the lower level of the gym. So we seek to recapture an additional 5 with an expansion in phase 2. Thanks to your support, we're well underway. We've hired a firm, and we are into schematic design for phase 1 at McCall, recapturing that lower level space for 3 classrooms you see on the left, installing an elevator to make this space fully accessible. And for those who grew up in town and went to McCall, we are repurposing the 1970s typing classroom, or the 1980s art room, or the 1990s storage room as a specialist workspace. And our goal is to keep this cost at or below $1 million. We move quickly then to phase 2, where we need to pick up the additional classrooms. We see the need for a 3-story addition off the back of the library wing to pick up 4 classrooms, relocate some specialist workspace on the 3rd floor, and capture that 5th classroom off the main corridor. Believe it or not, we are at or exceeding our occupancy limits at the cafeteria today as prescribed by the Life Safety Code. That's a no-no. This enrollment growth means any number of support spaces need to be addressed. Phase 2 will include the expansion of the cafeteria, as well as we're going to grab some low-hanging fruit. The bottom of the E-wing, which was built in 2008, includes a large, otherwise inaccessible storage space, which the athletic director has made a compelling case we need to convert to additional team rooms and bathrooms to support the growing field sports that we see at Knowlton Stadium and Manchester Field. This is a larger project, of course. We estimate the cost for Phase 2 at between $4.9 and $6.4 million. Elementary schools. Well, we studied many options in the fall that we've already discussed, and we ruled them out. What we did come to was an understanding that this community really appreciates our 5 neighborhood elementary schools, and we believe that even with the enrollment growth we see moving forward, we can sustain that model, at least for the term of this master plan. Therefore, we seek and have prioritized an expanded new or renovated Lynch Elementary School to accommodate 540 students plus a preschool, and expanded or new Morocco at a similar scale. We seek to exercise the build-out option at Vincent Owen, and many of you may scratch your head, but I'll get to that in a moment. And then really, at the end of the horizon of this master plan, we don't expect it would be accomplished, but we feel it's important to put a marker, if you will, that there's an opportunity at Ambrose, perhaps in the next 15 or 20 years, to bring that building up to a similar scale. Very quickly at Lynch, seeking to accommodate 540 students, several options are being developed, including one that seeks to build a new school while keeping the existing in place so that we use it as swing space. It's one of several options we're looking at. The gross project cost at this time we estimate between $48 and $55 million. However, the school committee, with the appreciate it very much, the support of the Board of Selectmen earlier this month, voted to submit statements of interest to the Massachusetts School Building Authority, first for the Lynch Elementary School and second for Morocco. With some informed assumptions about reimbursement rates, you see the net cost for a new Lynch could fall between $28 and $36 million. Morocco's a smaller program, no preschool, similar sized K-5 enrollment, however, and a net cost of $26 to $30. I feel I should just quickly note this isn't just about kids in space. I brought tonight a huge binder. It's something I think Helen Filio frequently brings with her when she speaks to you about capital planning. I enjoy serving with the Capital Planning Committee. My binder's about this thick. Every summer we evaluate the many needs that come from our town departments and department heads, but these requests are really only the most urgent. What I can share with you is that having just gone through the process this year, the top requests through the Capital Planning Committee for Lynch, if escalated out over 6 to 8 years, could reach $8 million, and at Morocco, over $5 million. However, these are only the top priorities. Remember, Lynch is a junior high school built in 1960, and Morocco was an open plan elementary school designed in 1965. So these buildings have other replacement and renewal needs, which all in exceed $25 million, which makes that comparison to our net cost with MSBA interesting. Lastly, I'll speak about Vincent Owen. VO was actually designed on the 3rd floor for a future expansion. The structure is there, the bathrooms are in place, the egress is in place, and the building systems are there to permit an additional 4 or 5 classrooms, and yes, space for mechanical cooling for air conditioning should it be necessary. At Ambrose, eventually the modulars will outlive their useful life. We envision a 3-story addition, 2 classrooms per floor, which could also bring the Ambrose School up to a similar scale of enrollment. My last program component tonight is central office. Many of you know central office has been located at Parkhurst School since 2012's redistricting, and this has never been a long-term plan. The Parkhurst School is a valuable asset to Winchester. It's valuable as swing space. It's valuable if we were to rent it to a private school, a preschool, or what have you. So it was always a shorter medium-term option. This master plan process, we asked ourselves, what about central office? Can we find a permanent home? We did evaluate incorporating the program into new build scenarios at Lynch and Morocco, and you see the costs associated with that. But we also went back to the carriage house option. The carriage house is a school property on the Ambrose campus between the school and the Sanborn house. And while there is some slight premium in moving into a restored carriage house, it comes, we think, with some real pros, including potential for some state or federal renovation and restoration grants. And I should also add, our finance director, John Denizio, calculated a 20-year rental scenario, which also comes in very similar. And again, we can discuss this more next month. So I'm pleased to share, after, frankly, 5 or 6 years of discussion with many of you here at town meeting, a unanimous consent on the part of the school committee to identify a renovated and restored carriage house as the next home of central office. I'd like to thank, and boy, this got jumbled up, Mr. Moderator, in the translation, but I would like to thank our working group for all of their time and their thoughtfulness that they've contributed in the process. Don't go away. I think we have one more meeting left. And lastly, I want to close with the same message I did in the fall. I want to thank all of you at town meeting for your support of this master plan update. Our schools are a significant part of our architectural and cultural fabric. They are multi-generational investments where great work happens every day. A current, clear, and effective master plan helps us to be good stewards of facilities, whether handed down to us or ones we build ourselves. And it helps us continue to make smart capital project decisions in the years to come, both in new construction and in renovations. So, Mr. Moderator, I'm sure we'll work hard to broadcast this once we pin down the date, but we are looking to the second or third week of May. We'd invite everyone to join us right here in the auditorium at Winchester High School for another community meeting where we can discuss this in more detail and welcome your feedback.
Thank you, Mr. Nixon. At this rate, we'll still be here in the second and third week of May. Mr. Michelson, the chairperson of the Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I will do my best to be short, since most of my content is coming next Monday. First off, we just wanted to do a quick framework of what the Finance Committee has been up to and what our agenda is, and a couple challenges. Some of it was mentioned already. And I do want to thank all the heads of the department, especially the town manager, assistant town manager and their staff, the town comptroller and her staff, and the Board of Selectmen for helping us through this process, as well as all the departments, the school committee, and the superintendent's department, and all the municipality departments in working through this. From a FinCom budget framework, there's a couple things that we stick to. The first one is adhering to the Board of Selectmen, the operating reserve policy. For recurring revenues, must fund recurring expenditures, and obviously we need a balanced budget. We still work every day on maintaining that 6 to 10% as operating reserves, and this is really important, especially as we go to vote next week for a lot of warrant articles that have a good amount of money that's going to come out of the general fund and free cash. But we work hard on maintaining the operating reserves. We look really hard at then paying for the current level of service, funding level services before at all the departments, and then really the benefits from pensions to OPEB to health insurance and unemployment and Medicare, and then roughly making sure this fund level services falls within the Prop 2.5. The OPEB has always been a challenge, as we've mentioned every year, and we continue to work on, and this year we are funding it along with town manager. But it's greatly underfunded, and that's always a challenge for the town. So some additional challenges, as Mr. Whitehead mentioned, upcoming contract negotiations is a big part of town now. That's going to be a impact on the expenses for the budget. Salaries are obviously the main driver of every budget, and there's additional staff requests in a lot of the budgets, as you'll see this year. A lot of them are needed. And then OPEB as well, from an annual required contribution. We're not fully funded, but we keep adding to it every year. Capital is currently not, we don't have enough available funding between the capital stabilization and the building stabilization fund. As Mr. Nixon just pointed out, we have a lot of things that we want to do in town from the school buildings, and the capital committee has worked really hard on finding what we can afford this year. But this is a huge issue from the town standpoint, and we'll have to work going forward. And of course, keeping our AAA bond rating is very important for us as well. That allows us to recover and recoup money when we go for bonds, and also allow us to do a lot of the projects we want to do. From an expense standpoint, in general, we worked really hard this year across all the departments to keep budgets level. General government is actually pretty flat from FY17, even though we had additional adds. We were able to find savings as well. And this is, of course, all before the unallocated wage reserves and before the contracts. Public safety increased by a percentage. We added staffing in both the police and the fire. to help with both 911 dispatch, firefighters and EMTs, so to lower the risk of the town. DPW mentioned has increases from the staffing for the new buildings, and to really help support all the existing systems that we're putting in place, not just in the high school and VO, but all the new buildings that we're planning to build as well. The education budget, we worked really hard with the school committee and the superintendent and her team to keep the education in check, but there's a lot of needs. Enrollment has been up, as we'll discuss, and as well as special education requirements and transportation. So we came in and agreed on the requested increase. Health insurance is always a big risk. The average health insurance for municipalities in the state is somewhere between 8 and 10%. So with our contractors and with the Board of Selectmen and the work, we were able to keep that in check around 4.6%, which definitely helps a lot. And then energy is another issue that we deal with constantly. We had a cold winter. We have new buildings, a much bigger high school, actually, even though we have efficient systems, brings bigger energy bills, and also fuel costs have been increasing a bit. So we're expecting that to be around 2.3%. Long-term challenges, it's not really a surprise. We need additional staffing to support the many different programs we have here as the town grows and as the population and needs grows. We're going to need additional staff, and of course, staffing is the biggest part of the budget. Capital, as I mentioned, is the huge request, and we'll have to work toward figuring out how do we fund the capital stabilization and the building stabilization funds and all the capital needs that we have, because we definitely have infrastructure that needs that. I mentioned OPEB. Again, we include a line item to fund that this year for the ARC, the annual required contribution, but we're not anywhere near where we think we need to be long term. And that's what we're kind of talking about down the road. And then really the contractual obligations, where we talked a little bit about the 40B development projects and other things that there's going to be a pressure on, between the contract obligations and the new buildings that are coming in and the new requirements. So just parting thoughts, there's a lot of priorities in town. It's a lot of challenge to try to meet every department's priorities and everyone. We think we did a good job, and we once again appreciate the help from the different town departments and the committees out there. And as we talk next week, we'll really focus on where we're at from expenses and debts and the liabilities. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Mikeson. Next here from the Planning Board, it's Chairperson Jackie Welch. Ms. Welch.
Which one? Number 6.
One.
Forward, backwards.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay. Good evening, town meeting, town moderator, Board of Selectmen, all the other committees and boards. My name is Jackie Welch. I'm the new chair of the Planning Board. First, I'd like to recognize Betsy Krager for her many years of service as chair of the Planning Board. She's also served the town in many other roles, and we just wanted to praise her for all of her dedication. And as the town moderator was also noting, we are very appreciative of all the great service of Charles Sekaris for his many years on the planning board and in other roles in the town, including EFP and PBC. See if this works. Here we go. The planning board's responsibilities include zoning bylaw review updates and regulations, master plan drafting and updates, excuse me, center business district special permit granting authority, recommendations on site plan review, other petitions elsewhere in town, subdivision control law review, updates and approvals, and land use planning and review, including proposals under Chapter 40B. This is just a really broad overview. Center Business District, Planning Board updates, what's been going on for the past year. There's some beautiful photos here. I know you'll recognize them through town. First of all, we drafted and adopted rules and regulations for the Center Business District. We reviewed and approved 19 new housing units in the Center Business District since the 2015 zoning change, which allowed residential development. These include the development on Elmwood Avenue, which appears on the left side, the lower left, which also will include one affordable housing unit, and also what we call Main Street, which many of you commonly know as the second floor of Brugger's Bagels. In addition, there's we reviewed and approved historic renovation on Park Street, which is behind Winchester Cooperative Bank. It's an absolutely gorgeous building, and the renovation to it looks like it's being done in a really beautiful way. In addition, with respect to the Center Business District, here are some more beautiful photos. We reviewed and approved the outdoor dining area permit for the Waterfield Kitchen and Courtyard. That's the photograph that's in the middle. You might recognize that as what's also called the Locatelli block. And so now, soon there will be outdoor dining, which will be a lovely opportunity for town to partake in. In addition, as has been noted by the Board of Selectmen and Chairman Mr. Whitehead, MBTA is at 30% design, working towards 60% on a renovation of Winchester train station. And also the Waterfield RFP is on hold currently until further parking analysis, likely mid-May. So these other two photographs that kind of bookend the center photograph illustrate those other two projects. In addition, Winning Farm Development Project, and I'd like to just point out this is not Right Lock Farm, because sometimes people get it confused because they both start with W's, but they're in different locations of town, although both on towards the western side. Winning Farm, as many of you know, is a development project off Thornberry Road. The Planning Board reviewed and approved the preliminary plan in March 2017. Here's some beautiful photographs. Not only a exemplar of one of the triplexes, but also the site plan in general. This particular project involves 29 residential units, 2 of which would be affordable housing units, duplexes and triplexes. The Zoning Board of Appeal, we understand, I believe, is meeting tonight and reviewing this project currently. This also includes comprehensive permit application, as I was just saying, being reviewed and heard by the ZBA tonight. In addition, the Planning Board is involved in review of petitions to the Zoning Board of Appeals. The Planning Board continues review of special permits and site plans and issues reports to the Zoning Board of Appeals with its recommendations. Most of these petitions involve setback encroachment issues for proposed additions or non-conforming structures. This is just an exemplar, just as an example. In addition, the Planning Board is involved in the subdivision control law review. We have reviewed petitions for 8 new lots created as by right actions, otherwise known as approval not required. Also, we have continued preliminary discussions with developers seeking to create new subdivisions with new roads. And we've also reviewed 1 subdivision petition with a new road. In addition, there's been a lot of discussion with other boards with respect to 40B, affordable housing review of projects. We'll just go through this quickly. There is, as Chairman Whitehead was saying, there will be a housing production plan that's it's some initial stages, but it's definitely going to be very important for the town. It's a collaborative effort with the Board of Selectmen, Housing Partnership Board, Planning Board. In addition, as you all are aware at this point, the Forest Ridge application is currently not under review by Mass Housing. In addition, the Cambridge Street application, you might remember that one, is currently on appeal in Superior Court. There's a possible 40B proposal, as has been discussed already tonight, on Holton Street with roughly around 300 units to be submitted by a developer. With respect to the zoning bylaw review, there's a need for improving clarity of some of the provisions, which is one of the important tasks of the Planning Board. And we're just going to tee up a few subjects that will likely be presented to town meeting in the fall. In the definition, site plan review, and special permit provisions, definitions are needed for the following: neighborhood character, historic resource, and impacts on the environment, because these terms appear in provisions, but they are not defined. In addition, architectural massing criteria is needed in 2-family dwelling definitions, and as well, reference to historical commission and design review committee are needed in site plan review procedural provisions reflecting customary practice. The Planning Board plans to introduce these and other articles at the fall town meeting. In conclusion, the Planning Board continues its work on zoning and land use planning matters. At this town meeting, we'll be introducing Article 6 on curb cuts and Article 7 on the master plan. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Ms. Welch. We'll now hear from Dr. Shannon Bottari from the Board of Health. Dr. Bottari.
Thank you so much, Mr. Moderator. Thank you, town meeting members. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. I am Shannon Bottari. I'm representing the Board of Health for Winchester. I work very closely with Jennifer Murphy, who's our director. She's wonderful, and Kathy Donahue and Carrie Bartlett. I've been on the Board of Health for about 2 years. So. Our responsibilities are mainly to ensure the safety of the food, the housing for the occupants, the recreational and drinking water, camps for children, domestic animal populations, and residents during public health emergencies. Most of our prevention efforts are vaccination clinics, communicable disease control, regulating the use of tobacco products, and monitoring and educating about alcohol, drugs, substance abuse, and also risky behavior in our youth in Winchester. Most of these responsibilities are mandated by law, but not all of them. So one of the highlights of this year in 2016 has been that we adopted the most current FDA food code. It was effective January 1 of this year. It modernizes the retail food program from the 1999 code. We've collaborated with Melrose, Malden, Wakefield, and Medford, and our focus is on proven risk factors for foodborne illness. But with the new code, obviously, comes some new and more inspections. Complex food operations equals more inspections, especially for vulnerable populations such as hospital and also nursing homes in the area. So also this entails more trainings held at the food establishments to ensure compliance. We're especially proud of this year our hazardous waste collection. We've added a fall collection day to continue twice a year. We've collected over 20,000 pounds of hazardous household waste. We've collected approximately 900 pounds of medication for safe disposal from our popular Take Back program and from the 24/7 year-round medication disposal kiosk in the police station lobby. So thanks to the Winchester Police Department for the cooperation on that effort as well. Also in the police station lobby, we have the Sharps collection kiosk 24/7. We have collected approximately over 61,000 needles since February of 2015. So we're really proud of that. So obviously very important is our immunization clinics, both school-based and general public. In the school, this is our 8th annual school clinic. This year, all electronic, 100%, which eliminated the cumbersome moms and dads bringing the paperwork down to town hall. 100% was electronic registration this year, which was very helpful. We had a strong collaboration with all 7 school nurses and the staff at the schools. Almost 1,400 shots were given at the school, including booster doses. We did not have the nasal spray flu mist this year. It was not available nationwide. So, the general public, we had almost 1,400 flu vaccines, administered 500 doses of high-dose flu vaccine to 65 and older population. Both pneumonia shots, that's the Prevnar and the Pneumovax, have been administered to the 65 and older population as well. And we encourage, if there's anybody out there that has not had their pneumonia vaccine who is 65 and older, not going to look at anybody specifically, but please call the health department and we'd love to immunize you. We're very, very proud of our collaboration with the Winchester Coalition for a Safer Community, which is a program basically run by no other than our own Dot Butler with Krista Russo and Maura Sullivan. It's a program mostly aimed at the awareness, raising awareness, and bringing prevention to the center for risky behaviors in the young people of Winchester, specifically substance abuse, alcohol abuse, drug abuse, marijuana coming down a pike legally, who knows. So some of the following prevention programs they've been heading up this year. The Community Forum was the presentation of the 2015 YRBS data, and they discussed local recreational retail marijuana implications there. They also brought a little bit of awareness to the high school families regarding depression, which is a little bit new. There was a quote-unquote Speak About It program for Winchester High School girls, which involved raising awareness about risky relationships, dangerous relationships that they didn't feel comfortable in. So that was a big hit as well. I don't know if any of you guys know about the 01890 app. You can download it on your smartphone or iPhone. It's phenomenal, and these two students that started it were brilliant. They showed up at the Winchester Coalition for a Safer Community and presented it to us thoroughly. It had all sorts of information about our community at the touch of a button. And the biggest hit of it was actually a small part of the app where you could drop an anonymous hint, an anonymous tip regarding any unsafe or risky or dangerous behavior that possibly needed police involvement. So that was really helpful to the community too. And that was very well received by the police department. This hidden in plain sight, just a quick another example of the Winchester Coalition for a Safer Community. It was a mock teen bedroom that basically showed ways in which a teen could hide paraphernalia in their bedroom. So that was pretty eye-opening for a lot of us, including me as an ER doctor. Okay, so reminder, this week, Collection Day Saturday, April 29th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. 2 locations, hazardous waste at the DPW yard, and medicines and prescription drugs and sharps at the parking lot next to the Sons of Italy parking lot at the entrance to the transfer station. So you know where to reach us. We're downtown and website's right there. And please, if you get a chance, check out the Coalition website as well, WinchesterCoalitionSaferCommunity.com. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll now hear from the town manager, Mr. Howard. Mr. Howard.
Yes, sir. Forward, backwards.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good evening, town meeting members. And if you would you give a shout out to Matt Griffin, who does all of the, everybody's probably thinking, thank you, Matt. Even has me working one of these things, which I've been kind of allergic to for many years. So hopefully many of the topics you will see will look familiar. The format should look familiar as well. We try to just summarize as best we can the highlights of what you will have in front of you at this spring town meeting. Financial matters are a big part of everything that you take under consideration during this session, so we focus on some of that information right up front. We take care of whatever shortfalls we have in fiscal year 2017. That's contained in Article 8 that you'll see in front of you next week. And also the Finance Committee has also taken care of some shortfalls that occurred during the course of the year with some of the transfers that they do for departments. And they're summarizing their request in Article 10 to be kind of reimbursed for those things so that we have enough money in their reserve fund between now and the end of the year to take care of any other unanticipated cost. 2018 is a balanced budget, as you have heard from Roger and other speakers. That's contained in Article 14. It does have some variables that have to be addressed between now and the time that the July 1st date starts. We still have some labor costs that are not known exactly right now, although the good news is that we are coming to closure on a couple of our major municipal labor groups, and by the time we get to the personnel article in May 1st, we may have some good information to report, although we may not be able to bring those features in front of you because of the tightness of the time frame. We might have to be able to address them in November. Other items for your, it's too far ahead. Healthcare costs, as Roger reported, have grown. They've accelerated slightly over past years. we may have to continue to take a close look at our healthcare plan, and there may be the need for some potential adjustments that are necessary for the plan design in order to keep those costs in containment. There are several minor initiatives within these departments. You've heard that there are some personnel being added within the public safety departments. DPW is adding a new person to take care of facilities. Council on Aging has some minor program upgrades. Several personnel adjustments that will come forward in the Personnel Board's report to you in Article 36. There are recommendations based upon outside studies for upgrades of certain positions in our mid-managerial level. Cost of living recommendations to start the beginning of the year. Some according to the contracts that we're talking about. Others for non-union personnel, we're proposing a start of the year 2% increase that may be adjusted or modified come the middle of the fiscal year, which would be the subject of some potential activity in November. Energy costs have leveled off somewhat. So if you recall, we did have some energy costs, especially in this building, that drove us to have to fund some shortfalls, but we're expecting that energy costs will be in line in 17, and we can project a little bit better in 18 as the high school comes online in full for the school year of 17-18. We'll have a new building and a new base in which to measure that activity. Other financial matters of note, the Wright Lock Farm final payment has come in, so we've negotiated that final payment with the trust, the entity which the town sold the property to back last 2 years ago. So their final $400,000 payment has come in, and that'll pay off the short-term borrowing that we have in place. The Winning Farm development has several mitigation payments that will come forward, assuming that that project, as you heard from Jackie, moves forward to conclusion in the early spring here, or early part of the summer. Eversource, we continue to kind of battle, deal with those transmission line projects that are projected for the town. The 115 line is something that we know will probably happen. The 345 line, as Jim has reported, is something we continue to debate and fight and contend with up at the siting board. There are various planning initiatives, housing production plans, planning master plan, fields master plan, needs assessment plan. The good news is there's a lot of planning going on. You're paying for it, but there's a lot of planning going on, and one of our jobs is to make sure that all of those groups kind of cross-reference their planning. The great report that was given by Chris on the school's master plan is a centerpiece of all of that activity. Various grant opportunities that we try to track down that will help the bottom line. But green communities, complete streets, safe routes to schools, ADA possibilities, historic commission, grants, council on aging, average owner beautification, and bridge infrastructure are all outside funds that we try to make the best opportunity of. There's probably a couple of $1 million of activity right on those bullet point summaries alone. In my closing remarks, I will touch upon a couple of things, again, that you've already heard, but hearing them again should give you some sense of their importance. In the town center, housing initiatives, commuter rail upgrade, parking changes, zip cars, charging stations. The bikeway project is getting started next month. That comes through the center of town. And streetscape improvements that hopefully go along with the commuter rail upgrade. Town-wide housing concerns, affordable housing planning, and our approach to the commitment, the town's commitment under Chapter 40B. Overall housing trends are all things that are being looked at and measured. The school's master plan moves forward, as Chris reported. The operational budget will need resources. The last handful of fiscal years, especially the last 6 that I've been here, our goal has always been to have our expenses match up with what we project our revenues to be. As many speakers have reported to you, it gets harder and harder to do that, and there may be the need for an operational override at some time in the not too distant future in order to have those things continue to match up, revenues and wished-for expenses. Capital projects, we have the usual complement of stabilization fund project, the synthetic field at Skilling's, which we implore you and hope that you will vote the bonding for in the special town meeting, lead pipe replacement program, flood mitigation program, complete streets, Eversource, many, many more that all of your departments do a great job at managing and pushing forward in order to increase the quality of life throughout the community. As usual, I want to thank the Finance Committee for their professional approach to putting together a very workable FY 2018 budget. They do a very respectful job at hearing from your department heads and making sure that all that departmental activity is justifiable and returns good results for town services throughout the complement of the departments that we oversee. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Howard. We'll now hear from the Board of Library Trustees, Ms. Murray. Ms. Murray. While we're waiting for Ms. Murray, I'll provide the official yet unfair notice that we're formally in extra time, so we're going to strictly enforce the clock. Excellent.
Good evening, everybody. Board of Selectmen, Town Manager, Finance Committee, and all of Town Meeting. My name is Jane Murray. I'm the newly elected chairman of the Winchester Public Library Board of Trustees. I do not have any slides, so I'm not going to read to you what you can read yourself. I'm just going to tell you about a couple of things that are going on at the library. We're very lucky in that we sort of stay below the radar of so many things that are going on in this town. We just plug along and do our own thing, and it's a wonderful place to be, to work at, and to come to. So look forward to seeing all of you. In this past year, we have acquired a new assistant director. Barbara Ewan was there for 25 years. Our new assistant is a younger woman who's very technologically savvy, so we are moving into the 21st century. We have 2 new user-friendly book drops, you might have noticed. We did phase 2 of our landscaping, and phase 3 is going to start soon, and then we're just going to look lovely all over. We have Chromebooks, Rokus, hotspots, charging cords, and iPads in the children's library. This is the 25th year that Rush Out and Read, the ROAR program that is partially funded by the Winchester Cooperative Bank, 25th year that is going to be happening this summer. So what I really want to say is we have much to be proud of. We have much to look forward to. And mostly, I just want to say a very big thank you to everybody for your continued support. And we hope to see you at the library.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Murray. We'll now hear from the Conservation Commission, Mr. Nims.
Mr. Moderator, Selectmen, Mary Ann, FinCom, and town meeting members. My name is Zeke Nims. I'm the newly minted chair of the Conservation Commission. I've been in town for about 6 years and on the commission for about 3 years up near Davidson Park. As already been mentioned, I'm filling some pretty big shoes. Steve Parkhurst is a long-time member, and he has great historical perspective, so he'll be sorely missed. So I'm up here to provide a summary of what we've done in the last year or so, but first I'd really like to lay out a pretty basic floor plan for what the Conservation Commission does. We're primarily responsible by town meeting to promote open space, and that is very commonly overlooked. We also are charged by the Commonwealth to protect wetlands per the Clean Water Act and the Wetlands Act. And that duty reflects a desire and maybe even a right to have clean water. People like that. People like drinking cold, clean water. And we do that by protecting wetlands because that allows for the recharging of aquifers and allows a buffer capacity buffer capacity that diminishes flooding events that have been happening more often lately. So folks in Winchester usually have to come to our commission if their property is within 100 feet of one of these predetermined wetlands. And so our goal is to really ensure that these new projects don't have any negative effect on the wetlands. And also it doesn't decrease the flood storage capacity. And that decreases flooding, which is important for the town. For those of you who don't know, this town does occasionally flood. But it's a team effort, it's not just us. And I'd like to thank a few people that we usually don't thank regularly. The assessor's office, who identifies abutters so that we can notify them that the projects are occurring. The engineering department, who does a lot of the math checks of the flood calculations. We really appreciate that effort. Also the town of Winchester, who provides us a full-time agent in Elaine Freeland. She's a really friendly face that is the front of our commission and has been here for over 20 years, and I really appreciate her anchoring. Our commissioners are engineers, scientists, large project planners, but we also have 2 openings. So in your copious spare time, would you like to come on down and help us out? We have 2 openings, and all you have to do is talk to the town manager. In the past year, we've had 22 residential applications go through our department and 2 large developments. We've had 18 municipal or utility projects, which include Eversource, a bike path, a culvert, fish ladder. We can keep going. But I'd like to highlight 3 or 4 very simple description or projects that I'm proud of in our commission. The Right Lock Land Trust, who has taken ownership of the land surrounding the Right Lock Farm, agreed to a conservation restriction, which is a protection of that land in perpetuity from development. And in crafting that document, we were able to also support the Right Lock Farm Conservancy's farm-based educational programs and their long-term goals while also promoting open space. That is at the state right now, and we really appreciate the Right Lock Land Trust efforts. We have to stay on time, folks. The Winchester Community Park, otherwise known as the Soccer Club on Cross Street, is actually a really great example of working with private developers to really open up a really ugly site. In the 80s, it was it was a factory for many years. It burned down in the early 80s, and it had overgrown. Almost all of that site is in the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission because it's right along the Aberjona River. And in a really short time, they were able to clear that site, level it off, and really protect all those exposed soils from any flooding events. Also, the site has more flood storage capacity than it had prior, so that's a benefit for the town's flooding. It's also up and running, which really allows for a lot of open space, even though it's a private community or a private affair. The Winning Farm has been a topic that I can't speak too much about because I haven't been here that long, but it's been going for over 20 years. It's behind the VO school and the Woburn line. And as described earlier, that's a 29-unit proposed site. What's really nice about that site is that it's surrounded by a trail network of forested space, about 2/3 of the site. So the wetlands are protected. We feel that the developer is really honoring those protections, and we also allows access again to open space in Winchester. And the last thing I'd like to comment on is the Aberjona Initiative, which has been headed by Elaine Freeland. And the goal is really to spruce up the downtown waterway specifically. You can all note that it's pretty overgrown in some places. And the goal here is to promote active use, outdoor art space, educational wetlands, and to promote Winchester as a destination. Because many towns would really like to have most of the time, quietly flowing river going through their downtown. And we think that it's a really nice, attractive piece of town that we could really emphasize. So with that, and it's short and sweet, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nims. We'll now hear from the Winchester Historical Commission, Mr. Hickey, on behalf of the Historical Commission.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, town meeting, for the opportunity to speak to you on behalf of the Historical Commission. I will be brief. I'm Bruce Hickey, Vice Chairman of the Historical Commission. Our commission is in a bit of transition on leadership as Heather Von Mering was elected to Planning Board, and we wanted to thank her for her years of service on the Historical Commission and her leadership over these last few years, which were very busy years. I'd also like to thank the town meeting for passing by overwhelming majority last town meeting our updated bylaw. We think it's going to be a very positive influence and effect on the town. The new bylaw became effective on March 25. In the interim, the commission has been working with town council, the town planner, and FinCom on a number of things, including a supplement to the demolition application, a form for opting for a preemption. That's one of the things that was adopted in the last town meeting, where residents who are not looking to demolish their house can nonetheless come before the Historical Commission and seek our determination on whether their house is historically significant. We also prepared a helpful guide for residents to help them research the history of their home or other buildings in Winchester. These guides and forms are available with Brian, the town planner. To date, only one application has come in under the new bylaw. The commission made a determination not to impose a delay, and just today we received our first application for a preemption determination. So we'll be working through that. As a follow-on to the updated bylaw that we passed last town meeting, we had been working to be helpful in terms of setting up accounts. Part of what the town meeting approved the last session was to have the potential for fees in certain applications and circumstances, and those fees would be used to pay for people who come and assist us in reviewing applications. Got a little bit ahead of ourselves, and in speaking with FinCom and Town Council, we're going to postpone those until fall town meeting. So Articles 33 and 34, you'll hear later from Mr. Moderator, will be postponed. And finally, for those interested in some statistics, from 2016, we had 45, the building department received 45 applications for demolition. 11 of those merited hearings by the Historic Commission. Of those 11, the commission imposed a delay with regard to 5 and determined not to impose a delay with regard to the remaining 6. We had some positive news of a couple of the properties who were delayed. One owner decided to complete an addition rather than demolish it, and another decided to put it back on the market as is and not demolish it. So we were lucky to save a couple houses that are important. And that's it. We're looking forward to another productive year and working with the various boards in the town meeting and preserving our historic resources. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hickey. On behalf of the Rangeley Park Heritage District Commission, Ms. Schmidt.
Just take that up a little. One, please. Which one's forward? This one, okay. Great. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good evening, everyone. That sounds really loud. Thank you for this chance to address you and tell you about the Rangeley Park Heritage District. My name is Christine Schmidt, and I am the chair of this group, and I just want to give you a very brief overview of our activities, and then I'm going to be back a little bit later this evening to talk to Article 4 and 5. Okay, so I'll start with a quick refresher on what the Heritage District is. If I had to boil that down, we are a group of neighbors who love our neighborhood. If you've been in the Rangeley area, you might see it's rather unique and charming. We feel it is. Houses are spread out. It has an organic flowing feel to it. The topography sort of rolls and a lot of people comment that it has a park-like feel. It's very special, and its legacy includes names like Skillings and Ginn, and we're quite protective of it. I think you've heard a number of times this evening about concerns about rampant contractor development, and we have those concerns too. So a group of us got together and agreed voluntarily to put some restrictions on how changes could be made in the future to what is our prominent facade, our street-facing facade. So our goal in doing that was to preserve and protect the features of our homes and thereby our neighborhood. We want changes to be consistent with the character of the neighborhood and the homes themselves. I want to stress here we are not anti-change, not by any means. We are pro-thoughtful change. These changes we've all agreed to are reviewed and decided upon by the Heritage District Commission. Now, next is, who are these people? Well, we are a group of 7, and we come together through 2 different means. The Board of Selectmen will appoint 1 regular member from the Historical Commission, and also, as you'll see, an alternate, and then we have 1 regular member coming from the Design Review Committee. The Planning Board then appoints 2 regular members and 1 alternate, and those folks are property owners like myself. And 1 regular member is also a design professional. So we hope that we have a well-balanced group to evaluate these proposals as they come forward. If you're curious what we look like, if you know the Rangeley area, the properties that are within this footprint belong to the district. So there are 18 homes in there, and which is a great start. It is a start. We are, if you will, the canaries in the coal mine. We went out there and got this thing going, and we're hoping that our success, and I'll tell you a little bit about that success, will spread enthusiasm for this movement, because I think a lot of people are concerned about preemptively protecting their homes and neighborhoods from developmental threats, if you will. And so there are a lot of other homes in the neighborhood that we're hoping will come join us. Okay, so here's our progress to date for the commission. We have created design guidelines and a handbook that embodies those to give to people to walk them through the design and review process. Also, it's really worth noting that 2 of the properties within the district, so these are folks that agreed to come on board, were sold to new owners in the last 2 years. And each of these 2 properties sold in less than 1 week. And I want to point that out because a lot of people think, well, if I put my house under restrictions, it's going to be a detriment. It'll be seen as a handicap when it's time to sell. And that hasn't been our experience at all. If anything, it's been a positive. These homes went fast. They went well priced. And the new owners have been enthusiastic about the process as well. In fact, one of them wanted to create an addition to their home. And we went through the process with them of review. It was very speedy. It happened within about a week. They were very well prepared with a good architect who had plans and design in mind. And the new design fits with the existing structure. It looks like it should have always been there. And they're pleased. They think that it was a good comprehensive evaluation. We're pleased as a neighborhood because it looks great. And in fact, they're so enthusiastic they've asked to be part of our commission.
Ms. Schmidt, your time has expired. Would you care for an additional 1 minute?
I would, please.
It's moved and seconded. Speaker's time be extended for 1 minute. All those in favor?
Thank
Any
you.
opposed?
All right, I'll chug along. Okay, here's the house. And so you can see the little mudroom on the side. It is in keeping with the character and the feel of the original structure. Okay, conclusion. So again, I would like to stress We're very excited about this initiative, this movement. We're hoping our enthusiasm will be contagious. Please let us know if you have any interest in exploring this for your own neighborhoods. We welcome your inquiries, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Deering from the EFPBC with an update on the Winchester High School project. Mr. Deering promises to be brief, which is good because when you become the Citizen of the Year, you can talk for as long as you want. It's been hard to shut Holly up all these years. So.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Fellow town meetings, I will be brief. You've heard from previous speakers that the high school is on time. We will open the school on time and on budget. I just want to highlight to you that we have one real challenge in front of us to complete the project, and that's the landscaping. As you can see, the portables occupy most of the space on the high school, and so we can't start doing the landscaping work until the portables out of there, and that doesn't happen until the end of the school. So during the summer, you're going to see a tremendous amount of activity. I think there's like 300 trees that have to be planted on the site. So that's our challenge. Inside the building, and Phase 3 is well on its way. We had a very good winter. You can see all the facade with the brickwork. That's almost complete right now. So the biggest thing is to get the portables out of there and get all the landscaping done so that the 1st of September, we have a real beautiful high school. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Finally, the World War II 75th Anniversary Committee has a program coming up on May 9th at 10:30 a.m., and Ellen Knight is going to speak to us about that program briefly.
I just sit and play? I thought you were speaking. It's not going to have sound. No, it's not. It's not going to have sound.
Okay, so that, Ellen, May 9th is the program, 10:30 a.m. There's a handout on the table. Please look at it, and if you want to come back with the sound before May 9th, you're more than welcome.
Okay. WinCam had prepared a trailer for you. Last year, on behalf of the World War II 75th Anniversary Committee, I spoke to you about remembering the 1940s, an intergenerational video history project. And you were to have seen a trailer for a documentary created from last year's interviews by high school seniors Gina Gray. It will be shown in its entirety at the Jenks Center on May 9th at 10:30 a.m. and again at the Winchester Public Library on May 30th at 7 p.m. For a reminder of those times and for the rest of the committee's report, I simply refer you to our handout.
Thank you very much. That concludes our reports. It's moved and seconded that the reports be accepted and put on file at the town meeting. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. So I apologize to you for the length of that. I can and will do a better job of controlling these reports and the people presenting. But my view with respect to these is that people spend a lot of time on our behalf throughout the year. Enormous amounts of time during the day, in the evening. They put a lot into what they do. They do it thoughtfully and intelligently, and this is their opportunity to report not just to us, but to the town as a whole. And so I think it's appropriate that we honor that by listening, as we have done this evening, to these reports. We are going to take a short break, and then we're going to come back and finish our non-financial articles. We won't be here tonight very much longer. I don't believe that the non-financial articles will take us that long. The Girl Scouts are present this evening, so we'll come back in 5 minutes. But in the meantime, 9:30, please patronize the Girl Scouts. Thank you. The precincts will convene in the cafeteria.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Alan Iden, and you are watching WinCam's live coverage of the Winchester first session of the Winchester Springtown meeting here at the Winchester High School on April 24th. So the town meeting is in a brief recess, so let's recap what we heard or saw already this evening. The opening of the town meeting was heralded by the Winchester High School Choir. That gave a lively brief concert, and our moderator said they are headed to Carnegie Hall this weekend. So a great way to start off the Springtown meeting. After that, new town meeting members were sworn in, and then several people who have done a lot of contributing to the town were recognized. Bob Deering was recognized as this year's Chamber of Commerce Citizen of the Year and the longtime chair of the Educational Facilities Building and Planning Committee. Jay Gill, the director of the DPW, is recognized as being inducted into the Winchester High School Sports Hall of Fame this year. Charles Sekris, who has spent over 35 years with Planning Board and other various town boards, was recognized, as was Steve Powers, who has also spent many, many years school committee as an assessor and a selectman. And last but not least, Steve Parkhurst. He and his wife are leaving the town after 49 years of service as town meeting members and many different committees, including conservation and planning. All of them recognized with standing ovations by the town meeting members. Then we went on to Article 1, which is always the reports from the various town boards. We heard first from Jim Whitehead, Chairman of the Board of Selectmen, who said the town is in excellent financial health. He said the school budget is up 4%, and that increase is unsustainable without additional tax revenue. Challenges, he reflected on the challenges of 40B developments and the need to create a plan for the state to show that the town is working on affordable housing. The town is looking for funding for the rebuild of the Swanton Street Bridge culvert. He talked about the placement of temporary traffic lights at Johnson and Ridge Street, one of the most accident-prone intersections in town, pending permanent lights that will be put there in a few years. He said that the energy mitigation projects for the town have saved the town millions in the town properties. And he talked about progress on removing lead service lines to some of the older residences. He also said the planning continues on the train station, rebuilding of the train station, and plans for the Waterfield lot adjacent to that station. Susan Verdicchio is the chairman of the school committee. She said the goal of the school committee and all the faculty is to promote a lifelong love of learning and support emotional growth of Winchester High School students. She said the Winchester High School is on target for a fall finish. They are working on a master plan for the school system, including renovation of Lynch and Morocco schools. And she also said that private funding such as Winchester Foundation for Educational Excellence, is vital to close the funding gap for the school. And she also said on April 27th, there will be a community visioning conversation on the future of Winchester schools. Chris Nixon, also from the school committee, made a presentation on the school committee's master plan, an update on the master plan for facilities. He said it does not include the details of facility improvements, but talked about the the challenges presented by potential 40B projects bringing many more students into the system. He said as the potential project on Forest Circle has gone down, there now appears to be one proposed for Holton Street. And other potential projects. He touched on other potential projects in other places in town. He said in year 5 years from now, there will be an increase of 240 students projected for kindergarten through 5 and 147 at McCall. He said the town needs a 3-story addition at McCall at a cost of $4 to $6 million. Town also is looking to extensively renovate Lynch and Morocco schools, both built in the 60s, and the price tag for those will be somewhere around $48 to $58 million. Also, there's a need to expand Ambrose School, which doesn't seem that old, and potentially moving the administration from current Parker School to the carriage house on the Ambrose School property. Roger Michelson from the Finance Committee spoke next, talking about maintaining the town's 6 to 10% operating reserves. Talked about the potential impact of negotiations on salaries, keeping the town's AAA bond rating. He said they're particularly proud of keeping the health insurance increase to 4.6%, where a national average or a state average was somewhere around 9%, and touched on the capital needs of the town that are underfunded. Jackie Welch, the new chairman of the planning board, talked about the new regulations in the Central Business District, which have resulted already in proposals for 19 new units. Said that the MBTA station rebuild, train station rebuild is in 30% design. 30% the design has been completed for that, and briefly touched on the Winning Farm proposal for 29 residential units up off Thornbury Road. We heard from the Shannon Bottari, the Board of Health chair, said the town has collected 20,000 pounds in the past year, 20,000 pounds of hazardous waste. She did a tip of the hat to Winchester Coalition for a Safer Community and the partnership with the Board of Health, and also reminded the town that on April 29th there'll be a hazardous waste collection and drug collection up at the transfer station. Richard Howard, the town manager, basically recapped a lot of the things previous speakers had talked about. We heard from the chair of the library trustees. We heard from the chair of the Conservation Commission, talking about their goals to promote open space and protect the wetlands of the town, and also talked about the Aberjona initiative to clean up and make more attractive the riverbanks through the center of town, and talked about what an asset that is for the town. Bruce Hickey from the Historical Commission thanked the town meeting for passing the historic demolition delay bylaw last fall, and talked about some of the successes in there, including saving two residences that were scheduled for demolition. We heard a short presentation from the Rangeley Park Historic Heritage District, of which there are 18 properties in the Rangeley Ridge area, which is adjacent to the downtown district. And finally, we heard from Bob Deering from the EFBBC, Educational Facilities Building and Planning Commission, and said that the high school is under budget and on time. The remaining challenge over the summer is to remove the portable classrooms and take care of the landscaping around the high school, which he said would involve the planting of about 300 trees. So that's where town meeting stands right now. A reminder to those of you who watch town meeting that no financial articles will be taken up tonight. So there are a couple of them between this article and Article 13, some of which are going to be indefinitely postponed, but only non-financial articles can be taken up tonight. The finances cannot be done until the beginning of May, which would be next Monday's meeting. So we invite you to stay tuned to us. We will have a recap of tonight's meeting at the conclusion, which should be fairly soon. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you shortly.
Mostly, I think the door was open or something. No, I got a water mix. Yeah, what's going on with the precinct meeting? Are those? The town meeting members will take their seats. What? 7:30 a.m. tomorrow. 10 o'clock.
No, I'm all set. Thank you very much, though.
Just to go to court tomorrow, yeah. Coming back. Okay, the town meeting will come to order. Please take your seats. This brings us to Article 2. Article 2, as presented to the meeting, is slightly altered from the form that's in your book. It is the solicitation and canvassing article. The motion is being put forth by the Board of Selectmen. We will be considering, debating, and voting on Article 2 as revised. There was a handout on the table that you should have that is entitled Article 2 Revised. Mr. Arrico, who will be presenting it, will highlight the changes, but they are principally in Section 12, in exceptions, which delineates with more particularity the exceptions that apply here, and Section 14, which adds monetary amounts to the penalty consistent with the Massachusetts general law, which caps those penalties at $300 per offense. So those two changes are primarily the changes. They are not inconsistent with the warrant article as presented, and accordingly, the chair, with the advice of town council, finds them in order, and we will vote on Article 2 as revised. So the motion comes before the town meeting to see if the town will vote to amend the Town of Winchester Code of Bylaws by adding a new Chapter 21 as follows, or take any other action in relation thereto. The article then on pages 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 through Section 14 penalty is as put forth in the materials before you. The article is presented by the Board of Selectmen. On behalf of the Board of Selectmen, Mr. Arrico. Mr. Arrico.
Mr. Moderator, town meeting members, thank you. On behalf of the Board of Selectmen, I'm here to seek your approval of Article 2, solicitation and canvassing. Mr. Moderator, the Selectmen believe that Article 2 creates a fair and reasonable process for our police department to regulate both individuals and businesses who may seek to sell items or services in Winchester by soliciting door-to-door to Winchester residents. Article 2 creates a reasonable and reliable process which will enable our police department to further protect the safety and well-being of all residents in Winchester. A short summary of the process relating to this bylaw is as follows. An individual or a business would go to the town clerk and get an application. They would pay a $50 fee. They would need to do this 7 days before they wish to solicit in Winchester. That application would go to the police department, and the police department would have 7 days to conduct some background checks, which may include a criminal or sexual offender registry search. If the applicant is approved, they would then get a certificate of registration, which would have their photograph and other pertinent information about them and their business. Town meeting, I've received some excellent feedback. I sent out an email. I got some great questions from town meeting members. I'd like to just go over a few of those with you. First and foremost was, will Article 2 in any way prohibit or restrict organizations such as the Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, or high schoolers that may seek to sell services or goods door to door in Winchester? The answer is that Article 2 will not restrict the ability of Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, high schoolers who may seek to sell services door to door in Winchester. They would be exempt under Section 12, exceptions, subparagraph F. Another question was, do we have a legal opinion about whether this is an unconstitutional restraint on the expression of free speech? I would direct town meeting members to Section 1. The statement of purpose of Article 2 reads, "It is framed with deep respect for the principles embodied in the Constitution of the United States and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts." Town Council is very comfortable in stating that this bylaw in no way infringes upon citizens' constitutional rights or their expression of free speech. We believe the constitutional aspects of this bylaw have been vetted many times in many towns over many years. Another question was, how often do the police get solicitation complaints? Talking to the chief of police, their thought is, from their research, is approximately 50 on average, 50 complaints per year. The chief has also said that, he believes that there are probably a good number of residents that get annoyed by solicitors but never call in to complain. Town meeting member asked, $50. Dave, how does that stack up to other towns? Did some research. The range is $25 to $100. The selectmen believe that $50 is a fair application fee. Question was, what individuals or groups might Article 2 apply to? And talking to the police department, through the years, solicitation complaints have come in for those seeking to sell solar panels, furniture, books, magazines, home kitchen knives, vacuum cleaners, interior renovations like bathrooms and kitchens, exterior renovations like roofs, siding, or windows, driveway paving, snow removal, or landscaping. We had a question was, do other towns have the solicitation bylaws? And the answer is yes. Quite frankly, I went through many towns, and I didn't come across one town that didn't have one. Lexington, Belmont, Arlington, Concord, Needham, Weston, Lincoln, Wellesley, Burlington, Melrose, Woburn, Stoneham, Cambridge, Reading, Wilmington, Wakefield, Medford, Malden, Waltham, and Everett. So if you looked at Winchester, every town around Winchester and every town around those towns all have a similar solicitation bylaw. What I'd like to do is maybe ask the Chief of Police, Peter McDonald, come down just to say a few words about his thoughts about Article 2.
Chief McDonald, the Chief of the Winchester Police Department. Chief.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Hello, everybody. The Winchester Police Department supports passage of Article 2 of the Solicitation and Canvassing Bylaw. The Police Department believes that this bylaw strikes a fair balance between the right of a homeowner in Winchester to be free of unwanted solicitations at their doorstep and the right of free speech for the solicitors who would go door to door in town, in the town of Winchester. The bylaw further provides a measure of safety in potentially preventing a person with ill intent from soliciting door to door in the town of Winchester. If passed, This bylaw is useful in that it will allow the police department to conduct a limited inquiry into a person's background to determine if the solicitor is a suitable person to be licensed in the town of Winchester. In determining this, the police department would do a limited background check, which would include a CORI, which stands for Criminal Offender Record Information, and also a sexual offender record information. These are the same types of checks that the town and the school department will currently conduct, for example, to ensure that applicants looking for positions in town and working with children are safe to be working in town. This bylaw requires that a solicitor leave the property of a homeowner upon request of any occupant of this home. It directs that a solicitor not engage upon any property, any homeowner that displays a sign that says no solicitors or no trespassing. As Selectman Arrigo indicated, many towns around us, and in fact many towns in the state of Massachusetts already have a soliciting canvassing bylaw. And I respectfully request the town meeting pass this article. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Just to close up again, Mr. Moderator, town meeting members, the conclusion of the Board of Selectmen is that we believe that Article 2 provides a reasonable process for the Winchester Police Department to regulate door-to-door soliciting in Winchester, and we seek your approval of Article 2 tonight. Open it up for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Rico. I'll do the opening. Mr. Michelson, is there a recommendation from the Finance Committee?
The Finance Committee has found that there's no substantial financial impact on the town. The $50 fee offsets any expenses that are spent from the police department and the town clerk's office. So we voted indefinite postponement, which means pushing off the vote.
So as we understand, Mr. Michelson, the Finance Committee doesn't have a recommendation with respect to this article. Thank you. So further on the question, yes.
Where does that annoying Xfinity salesman fit in on this? Who seems to show up every month at a minimum?
Question from the town meeting member, Mr. Rico, is how does it apply to the Xfinity salesman who appears at Mr. McIntosh's door?
As I understand it, if it's a regular routine salesperson, i.e. someone doing water delivery or cable service, that they would not apply to this this article.
I think it's important to understand that the scope of the article is limited not only by the United States and Constitution, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, but also by the existing laws in the Commonwealth that govern how tight these restrictions can be. Yes, sir.
Dennis Collette, Precinct 1. Candidly, I look at this article and I see it as a solution looking for a problem, and I'll tell you why. First off, I did call the police department to find out in 2016 how many complaints actually came in relating to canvassing, and there were 31. I spoke with Jenny in your office, who did the research for me. Second, I don't see this as solving the problem. If the statement of purpose is the tranquility that residents expect to enjoy, whether I'm being annoyed by someone who is certified or not certified, I'm still being annoyed by that knock at the door. If someone has ill intent, they are not going to come before the town and register. They're going to break the law regardless. So I don't see this as solving that problem of an unwanted person knocking on your door who has ill intent. And I guess I would ask, especially as it relates to our elderly in the town, what are we doing to educate them, to encourage them not to answer their door, not to answer those random phone calls and the like? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Collette. Mr. Collette, to the proponents, are we doing anything within the town to educate the elderly and others with respect to being aware of and preventing unwanted solicitation or engagement with solicitors?
Mr. Moderator, what I'd like to say first is on the 30 in talking to the police department, the average is 50, and the police also believe that there are, I think there was 100. Right.
Who indicated that the actual number in 2016 was 31.
Right.
And even if it were triple that number, it would still be less than 1% of our total resident population that has had a complaint. You know, if we assume that we're 21,000 plus residents.
So the town meeting member's point is just to the limitation of the number of complaints. So if I could ask the proponents to respond simply to the question asked by the town meeting member, which was, does the town have any programs or is it taking any action to educate the elderly and other citizens with respect to unwanted solicitation? Through you, Mr. Collette, Chief McDonald, the Chief of Police, in response to the town meeting member's question.
Thank you. You know, you're correct. You spoke to Jenny Raleigh. There were 31 in 2016. In 2015, there were 43 incidents of complaints with solicitors going door to door. I think those two numbers represent a fraction of the number of people that become annoyed or harassed by solicitors going door to door in Winchester. I think most people that are bothered by this don't make a phone call to the police. They close the door, they go back inside, and that's the end of it. So I do think this is an important article for the town to pass.
I guess my further on the question is that someone who is registered, again, and I'm not to belabor the point here, but someone who is certified with the town is still annoying me knocking on my door. And this won't stop that.
Well, what this article intends to do is to provide the town with a safeguard against people going door to door who might be intent upon breaking the law or breaking into a house, you know, if nobody's home. And this article allows the police department to check somebody's background to, as best as we can, ensure that this person is going to, you know, conduct themselves appropriately while they're soliciting in town.
Further on the question. Yes, Ms. Savage. Actually, Dave, if you and the chief could have a seat. Thank you.
Hi. I guess I want to follow up on some of those comments. Carol Savage, Precinct 5. I too feel that this might be overreach. I'm a fan of government, but this feels like a big government solution to a small problem. It's a long, lengthy regulation and all this background checking of someone who wants to sell me solar panels. Feels a little contrary to small businesses, the door-to-door salesman kind of built this country. You know, I don't know, is there a safety issue here? I haven't heard there's a safety issue. I don't remember reading tranquility in the Constitution. So I understand we don't like people knocking on our doors. Mostly the people who knock on my doors are kids raising money for sports teams, you know, occasional campaigners. I don't see this as a major community issue, so I don't know, the data hasn't compelled me yet that there's a safety issue here, and it feels a bit unwelcoming to me. So maybe you'd like to comment on that. Maybe there is a safety issue and I'm missing the point on this, but 50 complaints out of, what is it, 20, what's our total household? 21,000, it's just not a high incident, and so I just react that way, and would appreciate feedback on that.
Further on the question.
By the selectmen, if someone would respond to that.
The town meeting member's question to the proponents of Board of Selectmen is there a safety issue that's been identified by the board or the town with respect to these solicitors and canvassers?
I would comment that the Board of Selectmen feels that this is a reasonable precaution to avoid and to minimize any chance of a safety issue. It's our belief that it's better to know who's going door to door, and I actually think the registration form would work in the best interest of someone who has a legitimate business, who knocks on a door, has a certificate of registration with their photograph to say that I've gone through the proper channels. And I also think that, that would be in the best interest of the citizens when they open the door, they see that someone has gone through the process.
I noticed there's a section on Cory checking these individuals. When does that kick in? When do you decide a salesperson needs to be Cory checked?
As part of the application process, they would fill it out at the town clerk's office, pay the fee. That application goes to the police department. The police department have 7 days to conduct their background check.
Further on the question, Mr. Starr.
I've got two questions. First one's just kind of a technical one. A high schooler selling Cutco knives during the summer to raise money to go to college, based on the wording of this thing, I believe is not exempt, correct?
If the high schooler is a not-for-profit, running as a not-for-profit entity, they are exempt.
Selling Cutco knives is, raising money for college is not for profit.
I think the town meeting member's question goes to, it's not the canvasser's status as a juvenile or high schooler, it's the status as soliciting funds for a nonprofit purpose. So if the canvassers are in high school and they're engaged in a profitable activity, then they likely would come within it to the extent they don't otherwise fall within the exceptions. I'll ask Mr. Krieger to address that particular question for you, Town Council.
Good evening, Art Krieger, Town Council. The high schooler in that example I think would be covered, and I also think the Xfinity salesman that was asked about earlier would be covered. Meaning subject to the new bylaw if you pass it, not exempt from it.
Thank you. Further on the question, Mr. Starr.
So my point is that I think while the concept could be good, I worry that the wording is way out of line for something that's as small as this is. My question through the moderator of the Board of Selectmen is, where did this come from? Is there an issue? Was there somebody who got really angry? And I mean, there must have been something that caused this to rise to this level.
Mr. Rico, to the proponents from Mr. Starr, the question is, was there a particular incident or something else that motivated this particular bylaw being proposed by the board?
As I understand it, Mr. Moderator, this article has come up before, and I think the issue in the past was who is exempted, who's not. Again, many, if not most, communities have some sort of solicitation bylaw. And again, the selectmen feel that it's important to have this as a safeguard to prevent something that may happen in the future. Just because nothing happened in the past doesn't mean that we shouldn't be taking necessary precautions to protect citizens.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Lamondre, further on the question.
If I may, first answer Mr. Collette's question in part. Section 3, Part E, is no person shall engage in solicitation of canvassing in or upon any residential property on which is displayed a sign prohibiting trespassing, solicitation, and canvassing. So if you're concerned about somebody coming with a permit, they would not even be able to step on your property. That's what I'm going to do.
But Mr. Collette, if we could stop we need to
and secondly,
stop the debate.
to Ms. Savage's point about has there ever been anybody hurt in one of these? I recall, I don't think it was that long ago, maybe the chief can remember, there was a murder in Woburn by one of these magazine solicitors up off Lexington Street, not too far from Winchester. It was probably about 10 years ago. Am I right? Okay, rest my case.
Mr. Lamondre makes a vague reminiscence about a murder in Woburn, and the chief confirms that murders do take place in Woburn. Further on the question. Yes, ma'am.
I think if anyone has read Winchester residents' Facebook page, many people have complained, and they may not have called the police department, but many have complained about the magazine salespeople that harass residents of Winchester. And I'm wondering if the chief could speak to that. I myself have had at least 3 incidences where my children are outside playing in the front yard. The magazine gentlemen are with them, come with my children to the backyard, and I have to call my husband to, help save us here. It's a very uncomfortable situation. And I think this does offer a little bit of protection to people that are home, that they don't feel too uncomfortable saying or call. I never called the police. I should have, and said, do they have their permit to be approaching my children and coming into my backyard and harassing me to buy magazines? So I was just wondering if they could talk about how that example may be addressed with this solicitation.
The question from the town meeting member to the chief of police is whether or not the chief has any information as to the prevalence of magazine solicitations and an incident of complaint that may not be reflected in the statistics that were previously reported.
Yes, the answer to that is that one of the primary complaints we get is that many of these solicitors are very persistent, very pushy. They won't leave people's properties when asked to leave a property, and they make residents feel very uncomfortable.
Thank you. Mr. Diaz, Mr. Jarius, I'm sorry, do you have?
D.F. Jarius, Precinct 8. I'm reading some of these prohibitions and requirements, and the conversation that came up about pushy magazine salesmen, wonder if a lot of this isn't just covered under property rights. If a pushy magazine salesman comes upon my property and refuses to leave, whether or not they're registered, I have a right to call the cops. And if they refuse to leave my property, whether they're registered or not, I can call the cops and say, if you don't get off my property, the cops will come and escort you off my property. So whether they're registered or not, it doesn't matter. And if someone is up to some nefarious thing, whether they're registered or not, I don't think is going to affect their behavior. So I think that, and if I am correct, we don't have anything in our current bylaws which says that a no solicitation sign has any legal meaning. So in my mind, if we simply said, if there's a no solicitation sign, you cannot set foot on my property, that would solve most of this, and the rest of this is just essentially property rights. If I ask you to leave my property and you don't leave my property, then I will call the cops on you, because that's my right as a property owner. And I think that would suffice for most of this. Thank you.
Further on the question? Yes, Mr. Nixon.
Mr. Moderator, thank you. Is this mic on? So I'm sensitive to the public safety concerns, and thinking of the remarks that Jack just shared about a tragedy in Woburn and the chief's remarks when we began discussion tonight, we're told there is potentially a legitimate public safety concern. So as a school committee member, let me assure you, since the schools were mentioned in an analogy, that a prospective employee must actually pass the Corey check before they're hired and they get a badge to get into the school buildings. So the concern that I do have with the article as presented lies in Section 5, Paragraph A. The last sentence that speaks to the obligation of the police to conduct the Corey background check reads, failure of the chief of police or his or her designee to so act within 7 business days shall constitute approval of said application. So therefore, although I do share some broader concerns about it as written, as evidenced by, or as shared by Mr. Collette and others, I must say if I were to support this tonight, I would propose an amendment, and I will in a moment, but I would simply suggest that any failure to act on the part of the police, perhaps it's a busy workday, a busy week, actually concerns me more, that a solicitor may actually have a badge that it may lead us to believe that they've been thoroughly vetted, perhaps they weren't. And therefore, Mr. Moderator, I rise to propose an amendment to Article 2, Section 5, Paragraph A, to delete the last sentence, which reads, failure of the chief of police or his or her designee to so act within 7 business days shall constitute approval of said application. So in other words, Mr. Moderator, then the obligation rests with the police department to conduct the Corey search, for which they're paid $50.
Mr. Nixon makes an amendment proposal to Section 5, subsection A, to eliminate the requirement that a failure to act within 7 days constitutes approval. The chair has some concerns that that section, as drafted and inserted, was intended to protect the constitutional rights of those persons for review and acting within an appropriate time limit, and would ask Town Council, Mr. Krieger, to address that issue as to whether that amendment, if made and adopted, would render the bylaw unconstitutional or otherwise inconsistent with the obligations of the laws of the Commonwealth.
I do not believe it would. The previous sentence makes the obligation to approve or deny within 7 days mandatory. And there are many situations in local and state law where there's an obligation to act within a certain time, and only in fairly rare circumstances do you find that a failure to act amounts to a constructive approval. There's some instances of that under zoning law, and you can probably think of others. But the answer is that if the chief sits on an application for several weeks, the applicant could go to court, and that's not what you want people to have to do. You hope the chief or the designee doesn't do that. But I don't believe that deleting that sentence would make the bylaw invalid or unconstitutional.
Town Council, having opined that the amendment would be in order, the matter now comes before the town meeting on Mr. Nixon's motion to amend the motion as made, and the amendment to Section 5, subsection A, to delete the last sentence thereof. On the motion to amend, Mr. Ferguson.
How long does it take to get a Corey report? If I've been a soccer coach in town, it seems like almost a instantaneous online thing, that it wouldn't take more than a few moments to get a Corey report.
Mr. Ferguson's question through the moderator to the Chief of Police is, how long does it take to get a Corey report?
A few minutes at the police department.
Thank you. And Mr. Ferguson with a follow-up on Mr. Nixon's motion to amend.
Over 7 business days, I'm sure the police department would be able to do a few-minute Corey report.
Matter comes before the town meeting on Mr. Nixon's motion to amend the motion made under Article 2. Remote majority vote required. Those in favor of the motion to amend, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? No. Motion passes. The motion now comes before the town meeting as amended. As amended, it reads as stated in Article 2 revised, with the exception of the last sentence of Section 5A, which has now been deleted by the amendment. We return to debate on the motion as amended. Further on the amended motion. Matter, Mr. Wilson.
Roger Wilson, Precinct 1. My question, and I believe it's already been addressed, but I just want to make sure that I understand this. A kid soliciting to shovel your driveway would need a $50 permit to do so.
Mr. Wilson's question to the proponents and perhaps town council is, would a juvenile coming to your door to ask if he can shovel your driveway require a permit to make that approach? I'd be happy if you could find that kid. Mr. Krieger, thank you. Mr. Krieger, in response to the town meeting member's question about that particular fact scenario.
I believe under Section 2, 2A1, the bylaw would cover selling services. So I believe it would cover that example. And when we turn to the exemptions, I don't believe any of them would exempt that example. So the answer is that for $50, the kid could shovel your driveway for the $50 fee.
Further on the question, the meeting will be in order. Further question, yes, sir.
I believe under Section 12, subparagraph B. Section 12, under exceptions, paragraph D, established customers are exempt, and therefore I believe a child asking to shovel would be exempt.
The town meeting member questions whether or not the child shoveling driveways would come under the milk truck driver exception for periodic route salesman.
I understand the argument, but I think the answer is probably that that exemption would not cover, because that's not a periodic route delivery that the child is doing. No, I understand, but it's to solicit orders for periodic route deliveries in the third line. It's a debatable point, and maybe that's a bit of a gray area. That I think is the closest I would come to saying that there might be an exemption. But I'm not persuaded, but again, it's arguable.
It's the problem. We may not have kids shoveling driveways, but they all have lawyers. Ms. Meister, further on the question. Ms. Meister, on the motion as amended, Ms. Meister.
So I'm assuming that a lot of this was picked up as boilerplate from all these many communities that Mr. Rico mentioned. And there are all these people, I suppose paper boys would be regular, something or other. So we do have this problem, if we're sympathetic to what you're trying to achieve with the snow shoveling periodically, et cetera. So is there some sort of amendment anybody wants to put forward to get that kid who's snow shoveling but not a regular contract, whatever, employee forward? I would be interested in hearing any kind of amendment. Other than that, it sounds to me like we've got a little problem here.
Thank you. The town meeting member expresses an openness towards further amendment that might address the question made by Mr. Wilson. Further on the motion as amended, yes, Ms. Savage.
Sorry, one last question. I'm just back to this in section 5B. In conducting his or her investigations, the chief of police may conduct reviews of reports, including criminal records, Corey, so on and so forth. And in the section above, so I guess my question is, when do you decide you need to do a Corey on someone? In the language above, it says the chief of police will decide whether an applicant is a suitable person to be licensed. So what is the decision criterion that we will apply? Will we apply Corey to every salesperson that comes to the town that wants to sell something to our households? Or is it selective? And if it's selective, how do we decide who gets Corey'd and who does not?
The town meeting member observes that the Corey requirement, that the bylaw vests discretion with the chief of police, and her question is, as a practical matter, can the chief speak to when that discretion would not be exercised? Chief O'Donnell.
Anybody that put an application for an investigation by the police department, a Corey and a SORI, both checks would be conducted on everybody without exception.
Thank you, Chief. Further on the question. Proponents are studying something but not hearing further action there. So the matter comes before the town meeting on the motion as amended, which as is stated under Article 2 revised with the deletion of this last sentence of Section 5, Sub A. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? No. The chair is in doubt. Accordingly, the chair will appoint some tellers. Mr. Johnson, if you could count your section and the Board of Selectmen. Mrs. Quinn, if you could count the section that extends as far as Mr. Howley. Ms. Starrett, if you could count your section. And Ms. Boney, if you could count your section on the left and the Finance Committee. All those in favor of, Ms. Quinn notes that I haven't sworn her in. It's good to have experienced hands. The tellers, please raise their hands and swear to provide an accurate and honest count to this town meeting of those voting on this motion. Thank you. So now, all those in favor of the motion as amended, please rise and the tellers will count. Eight. 15. 8, 29. All those opposed, please rise. Eleven. 26. 18. 15. 130 town meeting members having voted, 60 in the affirmative, 70 in the negative. The motion fails. This brings us to Article 3. Under Article 3, which is a motion brought by the Board of Selectmen to authorize the board to enter into negotiations with the NSTAR Electric Company regarding an easement. The chair is in receipt of a motion to continue Article 3 and the motion under Article 3 to a time certain, that time certain being the last order of business of this meeting on Monday, May 8th. Motion comes before the town meeting on the motion to continue to a time certain. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Article 3 will be considered as the last order of business on Monday, May 8th of this town meeting. Article 4, the matter comes before the town meeting on Article 4, propounded by the Rangeley Park Heritage District Commission. The chair is in receipt of a motion to indefinitely postpone Article 4. All those in favor of indefinite postponement, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion is indefinitely postponed. This brings us to Article 5. Article 5, a motion brought by the Rangeley Park Heritage District Commission to see if the town will vote to amend Chapter 9.1.13 Appeals of the Town of Winchester Code of Bylaws so that it reads as follows. Propose a language in bold or take any other action in relation thereto. There follows Section 19.1.13 Appeals modified by the language in bold in the purple book in front of you on page 16. The changes being made to this particular section are to insert a time limit for appeal and ruling on an appeal, which were omitted from the original proposal as made by the proponents. On behalf of the Rangeley Park Heritage District Commission and the motion under Article 5, Ms. Schmidt. Ms. Schmidt.
Okay, thank you. I think you've said it succinctly. When we drafted this language around appealing a decision, we neglected to include a time frame for an aggrieved party to do so. So we would like to propose the standard 20 days for a aggrieved party to seek an appeal, and then a proposed response time from the planning board of a standard 45 days.
May we have a recommendation from the planning board? Ms. Welch, the chairperson of the planning board.
On behalf of the planning board voted for favorable action.
Thank you. May we have a recommendation from the Board of Selectmen? On behalf of the Board of Selectmen, it's chairperson, Mr. Whitehead. Mr. Whitehead.
Yes, the Board of Selectmen voted favorable action.
Thank you. Matter comes before the town meeting on the motion made under Article 5 as previously stated. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. This brings us to Article 6. Article 6 is an article propounded by the Planning Board, and under Article 6, it is moved and seconded to see if the town will vote as follows, to make certain amendments to delete Section 5.1.6.7 of the Winchester zoning bylaw in its entirety and replace it as shown below. Add a new Section 5.1.10 as shown below and amend Section 5.1.9.5 to correct the cross-references as shown below, and 2, to amend Section 3.1.2 to correct the cross-references as shown below, or to take any other action in relation thereto. The motion under Article 6 being made by the Planning Board. Its chair, Ms. Welch. Ms. Welch.
Thank you. Thank you again, town meeting members and town moderator. This Article 6 is being presented by the planning board. I know it's kind of late, so I'm going to kind of go through these, but obviously if anybody has any questions, I'm sure through the moderator, we'll try to make sure we get some responses. Before I get started, I'd also like to thank our wonderful town planner, Brian Zakelli, for all of his hard work on behalf of the planning board and on behalf of the town. Let's see. So Article 6 covers curb cuts. It might be a topic that many of you haven't thought about very often, but on the other hand, maybe some of you have. The whole focus with Article 6 is to see if the town will vote to delete a particular section of the Winchester zoning bylaw so that it can be replaced with a new section and amended as follows. The topic's relevant to Article 6. What is a curb cut? When you go home tonight, you'll start using that language in your vocabulary if you don't already. Why didn't that go? That didn't go one at a time, sorry. What is a curb cut? Why does the town manage curb cuts? The reasons to update curb cut zoning bylaw, the proposed updates to Article 6, and the benefits of the proposed updates. Here's a beautiful schematic. What is a curb cut? Here it is. It's an opening in the curb at a driveway. Many of us have curb cuts. We probably never thought of them as curb cuts, but that's what they are. There are reasons to manage curb cuts, important reasons. The curbs protect pedestrians and property from vehicles. So when you actually think about it, you can understand why all these points are so important. Excessive curb cuts can conflict with traffic flow. Curbs direct water flow to storm drains. Each curb cut reduces on-street parking. Commercial properties and residential properties have different requirements for curb cuts. The reasons to update the curb cut bylaw. Multiple town departments request clarification and limitations on curb cuts. The planning board's been very involved in a lot of different zoning bylaw changes and updates, including Center Business District, and the curb cut bylaw has been something that we weren't able to complete until now. So it's something, though, that many of our town departments apparently are very eager to have us make sure that the zoning bylaws are updated. So currently, residential uses, for example, are not even mentioned in the bylaw, which seems kind of unusual, certainly. It's a gap, because most houses have curb cuts. The request received for residential curb cuts is can be even more than 40 feet wide. So there's a lot of kind of conflicting and inconsistent requests to some of the town offices. So the proposed update to the curb cut bylaw would actually, if you will, cut through some of the problems that we've been experiencing and actually provide some solutions. So the residential uses would now be specified in the amendment. There'd be a limit curb cut location when near intersections. The maximum widths will not change, 20 feet. But the update would allow for 1 to 2 curb cuts per single family dwelling. Hold that thought a minute, because I'll address that in a moment while your mind is wondering what we're talking about there. 2 curb cuts per duplex or triplex, and also a resident or a commercial establishment can apply for a special permit to accommodate unique circumstances. The curb cut update does not regulate the amount or use of pavement on a lot, or it also does not regulate the length of driveways, meaning the length, like the depth into your property. It also would not, the update would only address where the cuts are located and the width and number of cuts. Drum roll. Curb cuts, section 5.1.10. Single family home. Here's 2 lovely examples. Single family home on the left side, we have a driveway with a curb cut of 20 feet. On the other side, we see, again, with this illustration, a single family home, but we have a circular driveway. Both of these would be permitted under the update. They're permitted now, but they'd also be permitted under the update. But more specifically, there'd be a 10-foot wide opening on each side of the circular drive with 40 feet in between. So this is what the update would permit. We see this all over town now. It's just that this would be clear in the bylaw. And of course, as I noted, if there's a unique circumstances that someone requests to be accommodated, they can always apply for a special permit. Curb cuts, also in section 5.1.10, duplexes and triplexes. Here's the other schematic on how that would work. It looks kind of similar. Here's another example, duplexes and triplexes, so another option. Again, here we have either 10 feet wide, or with the prior slide, with the 20 feet wide, and then the circular 10 feet, 10 feet, and 40 feet in between. With this schematic, it's 10 feet in between. Signalized intersection distance. So some of the feedback we had received, and actually the interest in having these updates included from the Department of Engineering and Department of Public Works, issues regarding signalized intersections and the distances between curb cuts and signalized intersections. So the new bylaw, the amendments would address this situation and include 30 feet before the curb cut. For an unsignalized intersection, it could be 20 feet. That would be anything other than a traffic light. The benefits of the curb cut update. They will allow the Departments of Engineering and Public Works to review location and number of curb cuts, will increase safety for pedestrians and property, will improve control of stormwater, will establish differences between commercial and residential uses, will limit unnecessary curb cuts, and will establish a procedure to seek a special permit for unique circumstances. Before I get to this next, well, I'm already at the next slide, which is my last one, you'll probably appreciate. But this is a whole separate topic, but it's actually part of the same article. And so not to really have your head spinning because it is late. Nevertheless, the second piece of this is a proposal to the update zoning bylaw table of use because there's a typographical error. And this has nothing to do with curb cuts. This is a typographical error that exists in the Center Business District zoning bylaws that needs to have a change reference from the 7.3.11.4 to 7.3.11.3. So in any event, in conclusion, Article 6 would provide necessary updates to curb cut zoning bylaw provisions, and it would also correct this typographical error in the table of use. We're welcome to any questions through the moderator. And
Thank you, Ms. Welch. May we have a recommendation from the Board of Selectmen?
Mr. Moderator, town meeting members, the board unanimously supports this, recommends favorable action. This is updating, as Mrs. Welch reported, a gap. In the 1930s and 1950s, when our zoning bylaws were put in place, people did not own 2, 3, 4, and 5 cars. Nobody gave any thought to more than one driveway that was 10 or 15 feet wide. We haven't changed. This is an opportunity to do so. The critical problem for many people is a driveway that gets too close to an intersection and risks, when people back out, risks accidents. This clears that up. We curiously have restrictions like this or regulations like this to deal with commercial parking lots and any business parking lots, but not for our home.
thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Grensback. Yes, Mr. Conti.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I understand the worthy purpose that the Planning Board brings this article before us. However, my concern would be with respect to existing situations. In my precinct, we have a number of places, properties, including my own, for example, where we have double driveways that I believe this would render non-conforming uses. Now, if you have a driveway that's already in excess of the limitation, would not the property become a non-conforming use in that, if this is passed?
Mr. Conti asked, with respect to properties which don't conform to this bylaw, would they then become non-conforming uses?
Mr. Moderator, if I can defer to either Art or Brian on this, that would be great.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Doesn't get any easier, Art. Mr. Krieger, Town Council, in response to the town meeting member's question about if his property is non-conforming, whether this would become a non-conforming use.
That's actually not an easy question to answer because a driveway is not a use, it's a physical feature, but it is also typically not a structure. It's not a three-dimensional collection of materials in a fixed location, et cetera. It's just hot top. So if it's not a structure and it's not a use, conceptually it's not non-conforming, but I'm not sure I could tell you what the implications of that are for a driveway. I can certainly look into that, but I have not.
The response to the town meeting's question is the determination of that question is uncertain as presented. Further on the question. Mr. Conti, fair enough for a follow-up there.
Town Council can It's on, all right. If this question is, this is an important question. I mean, we would not want to render existing properties that have dimensions in excess of the allowable limitation rendered as non-conforming, well, they may not be a non-conforming use, but it may have an effect on the value of the property, and any amendments or changes to the property would have to be corrected in the event that it was held that this was an improper.
The town meeting member asks, reasonably enough, how would the bylaw, given the uncertainty in answer to his question, how would the bylaw affect the ongoing use of his property? If it is non-conforming, would he be required to make adjustments or changes? And at the time of sale or disposition of that property, would the new owner be required to make changes to the uses which would impair the value of the property at the time of that sale? And Ms. Krieger, if you could address that, that would be helpful.
Thanks, Mr. Moderator. That question is different, and I can give an answer to that one. It would not render the property illegal. The property would no longer conform with the current requirements, but there would be no requirement that I know of that the driveway be corrected or moved or narrowed or anything else. The driveway could stay where it is. It should not affect the use or the value of the driveway. The question comes up if you wanted to expand the curb cut. Is it an expansion of a non-conforming use or structure or not? And that's a different question. And that was what I was thinking of initially. But it would not affect the current use or value or legality of the existing driveway in any way.
Further on the question, sir.
Dave McQuan, Precinct 2. First, I just love it if you guys want to put a curb in my house. We don't have it in Precinct 2, so feel free to give me a curb. But beyond that, the question that I have for everyone here would be this. We passed a resolution recently which restricted paving on property. It restricted it in a way that I think I have to come before a board if I go to repave my driveway. If I did go to repave my driveway and I was non-conforming after this passed, would I need to adjust it? So we talked about coverage on a lot and things like that. So any change that I would make, I would think if I went to repave my driveway, I'd need to check with you guys. So help me just understand the clarification. If I do have to go before the board to ask for that permission, do I become non-conforming then?
And the town meeting's question relates to the recent bylaw change that regulated the amount of surface area on the property lot which could be covered by pavement or other impermeable surface. And his question is, if he undertakes a repaving of that area, would he then cause a non-conforming use? Mr. Krieger and or Mr. Zucchelli.
This bylaw, as was explained by Ms. Welch, would not affect the driveway on your property. The curb cut we're talking about is across the sidewalk. It's really the town property. And maybe I should have been clear. So it's not your driveway from the front line of your property inward. You can pave, repave, widen, do whatever you want. As Jackie said, this would not affect the driveway, the rest of the driveway at all. We're talking about just the width of the curb cut, the crossing of the sidewalk in the town, in the layout of the town way, the town street.
Thank you. Mr. Zucchelli, further on the question.
Just related to repaving your driveway, yeah, so the driveway, the pavement on your lot has to do with 30%. You can pave up to 30% of your lot. Well, there can be hardscape as well, so it could be in the form of patios or otherwise, but you don't need a building permit to pave your driveway, first of all, and it specifically doesn't affect actually your property in terms of the fact of where this cut is located is not on your property. It's not on anyone's property. It's in the right of way. It's part of the street. So it's my contention that it would not be, it couldn't affect your property as whether it's non-conforming or conforming use or structure or anything. It's not on your property. This is the cut at the street.
The follow-up, the town meeting member. Yes, sir.
Go after this? I appreciate that. I agree it's not on my property. I also agree the town doesn't have a record of the fact that I have 2 driveways at my house. So the contentious part comes if I come before you to ask for a 31% coverage of my lot and I have to go in front of the board to ask for special permission for whatever reason, 1% extra, Then it comes up, did I have a right to have 2 driveways on my property like I do right now? That's when something, which is not on my property, as you point out, it's on government property. But help me out with
So
that.
that would be grandfathered in. We wouldn't make you tear up that second opening. We wouldn't get you into conformity. I think if the only time something like that potentially could happen is if there's a totally new structure and there's let's say you have to rip up all of the curb cuts that are there, rip up all the sidewalk, then there might be part of the provision of the new construction potentially, but this doesn't necessarily say any of that. Just to confuse you even more, I think. So, sorry.
Yes, Mr. Richards, further on the question.
Precinct 1. Jack Richard, Precinct 1. We've heard 2 different things. Does a property owner or do they not have a vested property interest in the curb cut that they have? For example, if they have no property interest, the town could decide to just not give them a curb cut. Under what right does one get a curb cut? And do people who have existing curb cuts in their houses, do they need to go home and get a tape measure and make sure they're not 21 feet? Because as far as I understand, and I'm not a specialist in this area of the law, but I'm a lawyer and I've had some curb cut cases. It's a hybrid sort of right, and if the homeowner, if the law changes, the non-conforming pre-existing use or structure is a protection. You're either, when the law changes, you either are protected by your non-conforming status or you are illegal. I don't know that there's a third category of property right that fits in there. So I would ask the moderator to maybe ask the town council to educate us about that, because if I'm not non-conforming, then I am illegal as far as I understand.
Town meeting members, this question through the chair to the town council is, do property owners have any particular property right in the existing curb cuts? And is there anything responding to town meeting members' questioning that would give them some vested interest and protection going forward? The town planner, Mr. Zucchelli, has used in his response the word grandfathered, and the town meeting members seem to want to know reasonably enough whether existing curb cuts would in effect, using the colloquial expression, be grandfathered.
I believe that if you have a curb cut in front of your house, you have a kind of a right, a property right to the maintenance of that curb cut. That is, the town, I think, could not come and simply install a granite curb across your curb cut, because that would reduce the value of your property. That would be a kind of a taking. I think it would be impairing the use of your property. I don't know of any case law on this. I've never seen this situation come up, but that's my reaction to that. So I think that was part of the question. What I said was not that there's a third category of non-conforming, illegal, and something else, but I said it's not a use or a structure. But again, that was focused on the driveway on the lot, and that's really not the issue here. The issue here is only the crossing of the sidewalk, the crossing of part of the town layout. So if it's hard to put the curb cut into the boxes that we're used to dealing with in zoning law. But as I've said, and I still believe, that the homeowner has an interest in the maintenance of that curb cut and the non-interference with that curb cut. And nobody has to go home and make sure that their curb cut isn't 21 feet wide, because there is a kind of grandfathering that goes on, even though it's not a use or a structure. But I believe there is a right to maintain what's on the ground for the benefit of that home. What's that?
So the town meeting member, Ms. Richard, if you could just rise and ask your question through the chair, I'd appreciate it.
I guess what I'm asking is that I think a clear case would be if they ran a granite block in front and blocked the entire thing. But if I have 25 feet and the existing law changes to be 20 feet, do I have a legal claim that I have a right to 25 feet, or could the town change it to 20 feet? And I don't know is a perfectly good answer. It's my favorite answer sometimes. So I'm not looking for certainty. I just...
Well, it should be pretty clear by now that I can't give you complete certainty on that.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I guess a couple things before I get to the actual question. The situation, these kind of regulations have already existed in the other districts or with respect to other properties. And I understand this is literally hitting closer to home for the voters here, for the town meeting members. But this is not a new concept. It's just being applied more consistently across the town. That's number one. Number two is, of course, I've never heard of a town wanting to narrow a curb cut when it's presumably matches up with the driveway behind it. I mean, why would you do that? So I consider the possibility to be pretty remote. But since you've asked, I guess the answer is that there would be an argument for the homeowner that there's a right to maintain the curb cut the way it is in order to maintain the full use of the driveway that presumably matches it. It's not a clear answer. I don't consider it a realistic possibility, but that's the answer.
So this particular motion requires a 2/3 vote for adoption. The chair finds the questions as it relates to the certainty of how people's existing property interests will be dealt with, important ones and ones that are well made. And the chair is hopeful that with some respite that the town, either by amendment or perhaps with some more institutional clarity, can speak in a way which will provide comfort to the questioners and more certainty to the town meeting members debating this point. It also being 10:45, the chair finds it appropriate at this point to ask that the meeting return to the debate on this article as the first order of business on Monday, May 1st. So the chair would entertain a motion to adjourn for the evening and continue until Monday, May 1st at 7:30. Does the chair hear second? All in favor? See you Monday, May 1st. Thank you very much.
Quickly, before we lose our audience. Good evening once again, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Alan Iden. Town meeting has just adjourned for the night. So let's recap what has happened this evening. If you're just tuning in, basically the beginning of town meeting each spring and each fall is heralded by the reports of the town officers. If you tuned in at the beginning of the town meeting, you were serenaded by the Winchester High School choir that we were informed is heading to Carnegie Hall this weekend, and a rousing rendition there. So the moderator recognized several people for their outstanding contributions to the community, including Bob Deering, Jay Gill, Charles Sekris, Steve Powers, and Steve Parkhurst. We heard first from Jim Whitehead, the chairman of the Board of Selectmen, who said the town is in excellent financial health. He talked about the challenges of 40B developments and the need to create a plan that's acceptable to the state to mitigate some of those threatened developments. He said that the town plans to install temporary lights at the corner of Johnson and Ridge Streets, very dangerous intersection. Talked about looking for funding for additional culvert at the Swanton Street Bridge. Said that energy costs, energy conservation measures by the town have saved the town millions, and and talked about the plan that's continuing on the train station and the Waterfield lot downtown. Susan Verdicchio from the school committee said the school committee's goal is to provide a lifelong love of learning and support the emotional health of the students here in town. The Winchester High School is on target to finish on time this fall. The school committee is working on a master plan, which includes renovations of Lynch and Morocco. And she also commented that private funding, such as the Winchester Foundation for Educational Excellence, is vital for closing the budget gap. She said on April 27th, there will be a community visioning conversation held by the school committee. Chris Nixon, also from the school committee, talked about the school committee's master plan. While it does not involve facility details, it does look ahead to the potential of large 40B projects. He said the one on Forest Circle does not appear to be imminently an imminent risk to the town. However, another one is proposed over on Holton Street. Talked about in 5 years from now, 240 more kindergarten through 5 students and 147 more students will be at McCall. He said there is a need for a 3-story addition to McCall at a cost of $4 to $6 million, and the needs to renovate Lynch and Morocco schools somewhere in the vicinity of $48 to $58 million. Roger Michelson from the Finance Committee talked about the need, the Finance Committee the town maintaining a 6 to 10% operating reserves, and the need to keep the town's AAA bond rating, and said that the health insurance increase of 4.6% was considerably less than the averages of 9%. Jackie Welch from the Planning Board talked about the new regulations in the Center Business District that are beginning to come to fruition with the addition of 19 proposed housing units in the Center Business District. She also said that Winning Farm was on track to be approved for 29 residential units. The Board of Health Chair, Shannon Batari, talked about the fact that the Board of Health has collected 20,000 pounds of hazardous waste this year. She commended the Winchester Coalition for a Safer Community in partnership with the Board of Health, and said that on the 29th of April, which is this Saturday, there'll be a hazardous waste and drug collection at the transfer station. Richard Howard, the town manager, recapped many of these comments from previous speakers. We heard from the chairman of the library trustees, the chairman of the Conservation Commission, talking about promoting open space, talked about the Aberjona initiative to clean up the banks of the river and make them more attractive going through the center of town. The chair of the Historical Commission thanked the town for passing a historical demolition delay bylaw and said that already 2 properties have been saved from demolition because of that law. Bob Deering from the EFPBC said that the high school will be finished on time, and that the challenge right now is extensive landscaping that cannot begin until the end of the school year when the portable classrooms are removed, and he said it involved planting 300 trees. After the recess, there was considerable debate on Article 2, which was a canvassing and solicitation bylaw requiring people who plan to sell or solicit door-to-door in Winchester to apply for a permit at the $50 permit at the town clerk's office and be cleared by the police department for an ID. A lot of debate on that, particularly around things like, for instance, would the neighborhood kid who wants to shovel snow and is knocking door to door be subject to it? The answer being yes. And even though a lot of this was clarified by Peter McDonald, the chief of police, Article 2 failed to pass by a vote of 60 to 70. Discussion of Article 3, the Eversource easement, was postponed till May 8th. Article 4, proposed by the Rangeley Ridge Historical District, was indefinitely postponed. Article 5, also proposed by the Rangeley Ridge Historical District, to give a time frame for an aggrieved party to appeal a ruling, was passed. And the last discussion of the evening was on a proposal by the Planning Board to clarify the rules concerning curb cuts, the openings and curbs for driveways and other entrances to properties. Chairman Jackie Welch said it would correct cross-references. However, there was a lot of questions about whether if this law was passed, whether existing properties that did not conform to these regulations would be ruled as non-conforming properties. And after some discussion, the moderator decided that it might be best for the planning board to come back and clarify some of these issues, and the further discussion was postponed on Article 6, as considering the late hour, was postponed until the next meeting, which is next Monday, May 1st. So that's our wrap-up for Springtown Meeting Session 1 here on April 24th, 2017 at Winchester High School. We invite you to tune back in to us next Monday, May 1st for the next session of Winchester Springtown Meeting. So for all of us here at WinCam, we wish you a great night, and we look forward to seeing you again. Thank you.